Sur les 2 derniers jours, pendant le bootcamp qui a précédé la conférence, nous avons accueilli des entrepreneurs et des investisseurs de un peu partout, des entrepreneurs et des investisseurs marocains, des Kenyans, des Ghanéens, des Camerounais, des Algériens, des Égyptiens, des Tunisiens, des Palestiniens, des Libanais, des Jordaniens, des Émiratis, des Français et aussi beaucoup des Marocains du monde. Je vous demande de les applaudir tous. Pendant le bootcamp, il n'était pas question de présenter des concepts d'entrepreneuriat, mais de partager surtout des vécus, des réussites, des échecs, et surtout ressortir des leçons pour l'avenir des entrepreneurs, pour qu'ils puissent en tirer profit. Aujourd'hui encore, nous avons invité d'autres entrepreneurs et d'autres investisseurs, et uniquement des entrepreneurs et des investisseurs pour vous partager leur expérience. Tout au long de la journée, nous allons parler d'Afrique, de diaspora. D'Afrique parce que c'est l'avenir du monde et c'est notre avenir, et de diaspora parce qu'ils font partie des forces vives des pays africains. Le but de ce rassemblement est de vous présenter aussi des perspectives d'implémentation de vos futures structures au Maroc pour couvrir les opérations sur l'Afrique avec toutes les difficultés et les différences que connaît l'Afrique. L'Afrique n'est pas un tout, c'est différents pays et différentes façons de faire du business. Je profite de l'occasion pour remercier les mentors nationaux et internationaux, les startups, nos partenaires et sponsors, et je donne la parole à notre partenaire Anima en la personne de Mathias Fian pour vous présenter le programme Next Society, une brique importante de l'entrepreneuriat méditerranéen, aussi bien au Maroc que sur les autres pays du bassin.
Bonjour à tous et merci Naofal. Effectivement, je vais vous présenter un petit peu quelle est l'ambition de cette initiative The Next Society, conjointement à un autre projet qu'on met en œuvre qui s'appelle The Afrique Invest. Ces 2 projets sont soutenus par l'Union européenne et à cette occasion, je voudrais remercier Sandrine Beauchamp de la délégation de l'Union européenne ici au Maroc et l'inviter à dire un mot sur son action.
Merci Mathias. Bonjour à tous, bonjour monsieur. Sandrine Beauchamp pour la délégation de l'Union européenne. Je suis ravie d'être parmi vous ce samedi matin. Je suis assez étonnée du taux de participation, donc je félicite vraiment les organisateurs et puis reconnaissance à votre enthousiasme particulier à participer à ce projet. Sur l'accompagnement de la Commission européenne par rapport au projet d'Invest et The Next Society, je dois dire que c'est un pas franchi par l'Union européenne au Maroc, mais aussi sur le continent africain, pour justement renforcer les ponts qui peuvent s'établir entre les sociétés, en tout cas les startups que nous visons ici, et les marchés. Notre ambition, c'est effectivement de renforcer les capacités, le potentiel qui se trouve, en tout cas, qu'on croit déceler en particulier en Afrique et au Maroc en particulier pour la délégation ici sur place. Et notre ambition est effectivement de pouvoir faire en sorte d'avoir un climat des affaires serein, propice à développer vos solutions, l'innovation, aller plus en avant vers l'intégration des chaînes de valeur mondiales. Et c'est grâce à des opérateurs comme les startups qui ont un potentiel de développement auquel on croit qu'on pense qu'on arrivera à ces objectifs. Ce qu'il y a derrière, c'est d'accompagner les enjeux politiques, évidemment, du Maroc, mais aussi de l'Union européenne et des continents en général, d'accompagner justement les jeunes à trouver de l'emploi, les sociétés à s'épanouir et les populations à avoir de plus en plus de bien-être, à acquérir de plus en plus de bien-être dans la vie. Voilà, donc sans trop m'attarder, c'était juste pour saluer l'entrepreneuriat aujourd'hui représentatif quand même du continent et vous souhaiter plein succès pour ces travaux. En vous remerciant beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Beauchamp. I'm going to continue in English because I think most of you speak English here in the room. But I will be very short, I promise. Hello everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you and to represent Anima Investment Network today as I said, for these two major initiatives we are running, Afrique Invest and the Next Society. We are running these two major initiatives here with StartUP Morocco, and actually with these two initiative projects, we are promoting a large community of actors, of innovators and innovator support organizations in more than 20 countries in Europe, in the MENA region, and in Africa. What we do to activate this community, this movement, to create more value creation and to progress toward a more balanced partnership with Africa, is actually three things, which are the core of the Next Society and the Afrique Invest. First is to support the structuration of the ecosystems, of the innovation ecosystems in this country, in this region, especially to strengthen the advocacy of the ecosystem in order to have a positive impact of the policy framework of innovation, in order to create a more favorable legislation for innovation and for startups. So this is really the first action we do with these two initiatives. The second initiative is to work with the diaspora. Of course, to support entrepreneurs from diaspora, but also to use, if I can say, diaspora as accelerators of business cooperation, of technology transfer, between Europe and Africa, but also between the MENA region in Africa, and of course, also within African countries themselves. And the third thing we do actually is quite simple, most of the time complicated to implement, but as a concept it's very simple, is to support entrepreneurs and to support enterprise creation. Again, it's what we try to do with these two initiatives, with this community of innovation support organization, by organizing coaching sessions to the benefit of startups, to organize mentoring. We also organize soft landing missions for entrepreneurs in order to offer them to stay in top innovation incubators. We have also organized the first international business mission 1 month ago in Lisbon for the Web Summit. And of course, like we did the 2 last days, international boot camp in order to coach and to mentor the startups you are. Also, we have organized 10 days ago the first meeting between startups and investors. It was a power meeting connecting startups with innovation experts and business angels in order to have more impact and that startups can be invested. So it's just the three things I would like to present you, because this is the three more essential things we are running with our partner and StartUP Morocco in particular. And that's it for me. I wish you a very good conference day. Thank you.
Alors, j'ai le plaisir de vous présenter Monsieur Akram Benbak, qui est avant tout un ami, un entrepreneur, qui va nous accompagner tout au long du programme d'aujourd'hui. Akram Benbak est un entrepreneur et dirigeant en technologie basé à la Silicon Valley. Actuellement, il est directeur de Quant Energy, une des licornes de la Silicon Valley spécialisée dans les technologies de smart sensing pour les voitures autonomes, robots et applications IoT. Quant Energy Il a levé déjà 260 millions de dollars il y a quelque temps. Il est valorisé à peu près à 2 milliards de dollars. Dans une autre vie, il était aussi fondateur et CEO de Social IQ. Il a participé aussi à des levées de fonds importantes, parmi lesquelles l'IPO de Bloom Energy qui était valorisé à 3,5 milliards de dollars. Il est aussi entrepreneur dans l'écosystème marocain. C'est le fondateur et CEO de Botola, l'une des plateformes maghrébines qui suit l'actualité sportive de la région. Akram, la scène est pour toi.
Thank you, Nofal. Thank you for the warm introduction. I didn't know that I did all that. But just a little correction. Obviously, I'm not the CEO of El Botola. I'm just the president. The CEO has a much tougher job, and I cannot do it 5,000 miles away. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Please allow me to welcome you again to the StartUP Africa Summit. Very early in my career, my first training when I got in the U.S., I got a leadership training, and I learned one thing that really marked me throughout my, if I could call it, growth. So there are three types of people in this world. There are people who make things happen, and people who watch things happen, and people who say, "What happened?" You know? And congratulations that you're not the third type, because at least you're either watching or trying to make things happen. And the first type is really the kind of people that we need today. And in Africa, that is 1.2 billion people strong, with 200 million youth between the age of 15 and 24. This is looking at the glass half full. But it's also $1 billion, sorry, I'm thinking in dollars, 1 billion people. 1 billion people living with $2 a day or less. So we're talking about over 80% in poverty. And the purpose of something or an event like StartUP Africa Summit is really to identify those who can make things happen, help them, support them, finance them, to contribute to elevate this poverty, elevate people from poverty, just like what the Chinese did 30 years. 500 million people were able to change the way they live in China thanks to technology and entrepreneurship. And this is what we're trying to do in Africa. Thank you. And hopefully, these kind of events will inspire, help connect the right people to make these kind of things happen, create value, change the lives in the continent and beyond. And the first inspiration today will come from our dear friend Shukri Moussaoui, a Moroccan entrepreneur who grew up in the Netherlands. Shukri started a company called the Eternal Sun. I think it makes a lot of sense with the continent at hand. Eternal Sun is a company that helps solar companies test their equipment. So it's a testing and metrology company that has grown to service companies in 40 countries, acquired a company in the US to service the American market, and today there are some greater news that I would let Shukri share with you. Without further ado, please help me welcome Shukri. Thank you. You have the mic.
Assalamu alaikum. What is more resilient than a virus or a bacteria? What is more powerful than a virus or a bacteria? This question is asked by the world famous Leonardo DiCaprio in a very interesting movie. You know which one? Inception. Who said that? You did. Inception. In the movie Inception, very good movie, he asked the question, what is more resilient than a virus or a bacteria? What was the answer? An idea. Who said that? You did. It's an idea. Can you imagine? If you have an idea in your mind, it will hijack you. It will take over your life. You will forget to eat, forget to sleep, forget family, forget friends, forget rest. And especially when it's a business idea. I hope people do recognize that, because that happened to me 8, 9 years ago. So, my name is Shukri Moussaoui. I am founder of Eternal Sun. It's a company that is based in the Netherlands, in The Hague. We started 8, 9 years ago from Delft University of Technology as a spin-out. And we started our company at the incubation center, one of the top incubation centers in the world, Yes Delft. So, long time ago, in 2011, 7 years ago, my co-founder and I were developing a new type of solar panel. When I was studying, I wanted to do a few things in my life. Make global impact, use my resources that I have gained in the Netherlands, and use my know-how to do something in or with my country of origin, Morocco. So, how I think about the Netherlands and Morocco? Morocco is the most beautiful country in the world, where the Netherlands is the best country in the world. How can I combine this? But I would like to make global impact as well. And then I found it at the University of Technology. In 2002, just because I started, I realized that solar energy will be the next big thing. It wasn't there yet in Morocco. There were a lot of talkings, ideas, ambitions, but nothing installed yet. But then I really realized that this will be the next growth wave for Morocco and the rest of the world. So that's why I focused myself. And when at the end of my studies, I was developing a new type of solar panel that was able to do two things: generate power and create warm water. A hybrid solar panel, very innovative back in the days. And at some point in time, we had to test the quality of this particular PV module, right? And we couldn't find anything out there that was available to test our newest type of PV module. So what do you do then? You build your own solution. And that's also usually the best start of developing your own company, setting up your own company, solving your own problem. You have experienced an issue, solve it yourself. And then you can sell it and explain it to the rest of the world. So that's what we did. So we built a machine that was able to test the PV module, to simulate sunlight very accurately, and to read out with software algorithms the quality of the PV module. When it was there in the corner, working at the campus, there was a conference taking place at the university where people came by and they said, "Who built this? Shukri, Stefan, where are they?" I was 24, 23, I think, I don't know. No, here I am. "Did you build this?" "Yes." "Is it working?" Yes. Do you sell it? So my partner and myself were looking at each other. Of course. How much? How much? So we would like to sell the machine now. How much? How much? So back in the days, students, no money, nothing. Let's say something very big, you know? 10,000 euro. They said, it's fine. Without tax. It's still fine. When can you deliver the machine to our research center? How much time do you have? 4 months. That's fine. Do you also supply annual maintenance services? Google. Of course. That was our first start. Setting up the machine. This is the machine. Special picture. I did a trip to India, and by then it was the largest PV plant in the world. India has a very big challenge when it comes to energy supply, clean energy supply. And they have installed this. It was very expensive back in the days. Solar energy prices dropped, but then it was expensive. A lot of corporate investors have invested in this plant. And this has a lifetime guarantee of 25 years. A PV module normally has a lifetime guarantee of 25 years. However, some new technologies haven't been out there for 25 years, so how could you know? What happened, a substantial amount of these PV modules just cracked, broke in 3 months. Well, imagine that this PV plant is providing power to the city, to hospitals, to any critical buildings, and it just cracks. It's a serious issue. And then I realized if we were looking for a solution, if this well-known research center in the Netherlands was looking for a solution, there are more people outside in the world that are looking for this solution. Testing the performance and the reliability of PV modules for a lifetime. So this is how it looks like right now. It's kind of a sun simulator. It simulates sunlight very, very accurately. It's the highest standard in the industry, up to 99%. And on one side, you have software that can read out the quality of the module. So this is how we started. In the incubation center, Yes Delft. Small team. 3 of us, just working. And by then, our third hire was the lady there at the right. She is from China, from Shanghai, Min Wen. Why? Because the majority of the market of production of PV modules is in China. So make sure that your own company and your team represent your market, okay? So this was our initial research, pipeline investigation. So what's the value chain? How does it look like? So this was our very first version. Who are the players in the solar energy sector? Who are our clients? And then we did, this is the level 2 research we did, an improved version, and we made a deep dive. If we take all the R&D institutions that need a solution like us to test PV modules in their applied research phase, who are the top 10 largest, most important critical research institutions in the world, and are we talking to them? So this is the way how we just mapped this out. And we continued, and you see everywhere. So this is now our scope of machines. They can do weathering testing, accelerated life testing, instant performance testing of PV modules, all kinds of standard norm testing of PV modules. So this is how it looks like. We pack it in, we seal it, and it boxes. It's a huge machine, you can see that. You see all the people there trying to get it out of the building. And then finally it arrives in China. So I've never seen such a fancy truck, by the way, that opens from the side, you know, not even in the Netherlands. It's really cool. So then I'm there. So I am the CEO of the company. People were asking me what to do. I have no idea. So yeah, just put it there, do it there, do it there. Just being exposed in the market. Doing business in China is not something that you read out of the books. It's go there and experience yourself and get exposed. All the nasty mistakes, okay? Of course, finally, you get some recognition very fast in the Netherlands, also across the globe. So we won over 100,000 euros of prize money, totally, in different stages, where I did a few things. I first checked my story with an audience that had no idea what I'm doing. Does this make sense? Am I saying things that are stupid? Yeah? The second thing is, of course, you should check your story in a safe environment and then go to the customer. And the third, of course, is the money and the recognition. So in the beginning, we had no cash, debt-free, fully equity financed, no external capital involved. Our first investors were our customers who paid upfront. Okay? Also extremely important. If you show this to potential investors in your company, they will have more confidence in your business case. So this is some Dutch newspapers back in 2012, 13, 14, 15. So, and then the most important pitch competition, business plan competition that I attended was in San Jose. That's the capital of Silicon Valley in California. And I was there, 2,000 people in front of me, listening to my story, and those people, they have seen so many things. Software, hardware, anything, all kinds of business models, smart people. So, and then I said, okay, I will challenge myself and expose myself to this scene, and let's see how I will make this. So I was there, big room, and I gave my presentation there. And so what they did, they first give you the floor to a bigger audience, and then subsequently they take you to a smaller room where they will give you questions, ask you questions on the IP, the finance, the financial performance in a smaller audience, okay? And alhamdulillah, we won the Clean Tech Award of Silicon Valley, and we brought this award at home to the Netherlands. Usually I get an applause, usually. Oh, okay. This was really major. Okay, this is really, if we are recognized in the industry of Silicon Valley, okay, then we are doing good things. Story is good, machine is good, business model is good. But we won, I think, in 3 continents industry prizes. So in the US, in China, and in Europe. Okay? What we did in 2014, so 2013 was the Silicon Valley Prize. 2014, I'm gonna mention now just milestones per year. 2014, we secured finance from private equity firm in Belgium that invested in our company. Our initial round was 2 million euro. Okay? Of course, you have to spend the money, right? So we had the building. On the right side, you see the offices. On the left side, you see the workshop. At some point in time, the PV magazine called me. They said, and the PV magazine is the renowned industry magazine of the world for solar. They said, we would like to put you on the front page. Are you interested? And actually, they never do that. They never publish a product on the front page. They always publish a theme or a discussion or a topic, but never pushing a product. But they said, your product was really interesting. We would like to put it on the front page. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, that would be an honor. For what occasion? They said, no, well, we are publishing every year in Shanghai the top 50 game-changing innovations in the solar industry. And just for illustration, we would like to put you on the front page. I said, okay, cool, please. So this is what happened. What I didn't know, and what they didn't tell me, is when I received the magazine at home, at the office, it said they have put us on number 1. Game-changing innovations of the PV industry for 2015. That was really mind-blowing. The odd thing is, we just launched in 2016 a new machine, and exactly the same thing happened, putting us number 1 for 2 consecutive years, game-changing innovations in solar industry. So this was an interview that I had with Al Jazeera, and it was a funny interview for a young audience. He said, you know, you're Arab, right? I said, I'm from Morocco, yes. You are working on innovation, yes? Yes. Technology, right? High tech, yes. Can I ask you a question? Before the camera starts, the camera was already starting, was already filming, okay? I said, yeah, sure. He said, are you making a nuclear bomb? So I said, you guys are always trying to frame people from this side of the world into those stupid things when it comes to high-tech innovation and technology. No, I'm making something for the benefit of the world. I'm active in the solar energy industry, and I'm pushing innovation forward. Do you have another question? And it was all filming. So, and they broadcasted it from Lebanon to, I think, to Morocco itself as well. Of course, you will get asked for all kinds of presentations to share. And finally, Morocco. So, the Moroccan community, they recognized me. They got me on the radar. So, they have published me, a profile of me. And also in L'Opinion, Le Matin. That was in 2016 as well. So, already 5-6 years when I was working. But that's fine, that's good. Do you recognize this car? It's the World Solar Challenge car that is built at Delft University of Technology, right? And you know that this car has won a couple of times now in the world, yeah? They have the challenge, the solar car challenge, between Adelaide and Melbourne, I think, 3,000 miles in Australia, in desert. And all the universities are building a car that should work on solar energy only. Yeah? So, and Delft car in the Netherlands won a couple of times. Do you have any idea why? Because of course we tested it. So this is also very cool. We helped the student team to become winner for a couple of times, and we were very pleased to be part of that. So, what happened then? 2016. There is a large player in the market of testing equipment, which is Spire. That's a NASDAQ-listed company in 2016, based in Boston. Very, very serious supplier, very good name, very brand name. And I was traveling in Latin America, and I received that they were pursuing strategic alternatives. That's interesting. So I called my investor. I said, we should go to those people. And he said, why? Are you trying to make an exit or something? I said, no. We buy them. So we went there. We had a discussion at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. 4 months, traveling back and forth to customers, to supply chain. We've been to 5 countries in 2 weeks. And what happened? We acquired this company in 2016, becoming one of the largest in the world supplier of testing equipment of PV modules. So what you see here is the signing paper of each document, of each contract. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 contracts to do the acquisition. You know, just one paper, they gave it to me. It's a legal country there. So this is in Dutch. I'm sure Mr. Schielings can read it. So small Delft company acquired American stock listed company. Now that's a newsflash that you don't see every time. Let's go back a few slides. So initially we were working on our business plan, on our rollout. And we said, let's start in this country, small, in the Netherlands, then go to Germany, then go to France, and so on. But what really happened is this. Just the first country outside the Netherlands was China. It was really funny to think of, an oil spot, global rollout. But we just jumped into the countries where there is business. So, and finally, we did business in Morocco as well. So we are now active in 41 countries. And Morocco is the 34th. That's okay. My dream came true. My initial plan to do something with Morocco came out. Some patience, some time, but it happened. So at the COP22, 2 years in Marrakech, I signed all kinds of agreements to start building solar research centers for the purpose of helping young Moroccan students understanding the innovation in solar industry. So we have now 2 major testing centers installed in Morocco. One is at Lamé, the former was Adoré, and Irezenf Ben Grir, the solar energy park. And of course, every time I come here, I try to empower the youth. This is what can happen. I'm not the smartest, I'm not the most exciting person. If I can do that, why don't you can do that? So every time I make a tour throughout Morocco, this picture was taken in Hoceima, where I come from, empowering the youth, showing them that entrepreneurship can be a way of living and a successful living with impact. Okay? Up to now, 25% of all PV modules you see outside is tested with our equipment. Yeah? So we are a quarter of all the world installed base is tested with our solutions. And I'm wrapping up. The new adventure just started. We have seen that there is the top 10 world's largest ports in the world. They have an increase in influx of PV modules. So a lot of PV modules are coming in. For example, Morocco. Yeah? They're coming in from China. They're coming in from India. And in any case in the world, that happens a lot. The majority of production is in China or in the US. And we mapped out this landscape. Where is the largest influx import of PV modules? And we developed a new business model, not supplying machines, but also doing the test services at the customs before import. We did this already in Rotterdam. We are working in Los Angeles, and we will start, inshallah, soon in Morocco as well. Tanja port, we will set up a test center where crappy PV modules will be rejected. You can't see it with your eyes. You need to test them, okay? Just to make sure that the quality of PV modules are high in Morocco. So this is also the magazine that read about this. Inshallah, in 2 months there is also another major news. So I will keep you posted. I will finalize. So I was invited at the Royal Palace in the Netherlands, where I had a lunch or a dinner with the Prime Minister and with the King of the Netherlands, because of the invitation of the Jordanian King Abdullah, who is sitting next to our Prime Minister on his left side. So I was there. I was invited because I need to share my experiences about solar energy, and Jordan was in need for solar energy solutions. Okay, so. It was funny. This was the seat, how everyone should sit. I'm not sure whether it's good visible, but you see all kinds of very interesting names. Queen Rania, King Abdullah, King Willem-Alexander. And right below, Mr. Moussaoui. How nice, huh? I was really there, trust me. was really there. But just to why did I show this? Because I love, of course, making impact and talking to high-level people, but I love my country as well. So this is a small piece of land of my mom, who is on the left, and the other one is my brother, that we're trying to build every time and cultivate and put new trees in the ground, because I love my country as well, of origin. So it's a very strange mix of everything, but that's how interesting life is, okay? And I would like to end with my last slide. What StartUP Morocco is doing here, organizing with other organizers, StartUP Africa Summit is extremely important. We need to set up an entrepreneurship ecosystem in this country, to create some power from bottom up of people that can change the world, okay? By starting changing their own communities. If we can do this with the combination of Moroccan diaspora abroad, then we can make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. What an inspiration, and what a great thing what a great story to start the day with. I believe there are some people who are dying to ask questions, so we'd like to give them an opportunity. If you have a mic circulating, or if you want to ask a question, raise your hand. And if I may, try to get the lesson out of this. I think when you started your company, it was right after the financial crash, the global crash. And prior to that, I had the chance to work on as an investment banker on solar deals, and I failed miserably. We lost quite a bit of money, but in this big hyped trends, you didn't choose to build the panel, but you chose to build the tools that help you test the panels. And this is a really key lesson that we would like to share with all the African entrepreneurs here. Because in the gold rush, if you all are familiar with the gold rush, la ruée vers l'or, El Dorado, in the past centuries, couple of centuries, who made the money? Who made the money in El Dorado? It wasn't the people who were digging for gold. They were actually looking for the lottery ticket, right? Who's going to find the gold? It was people who were selling the shovels and the pans, and who are feeding them, going there where there is a crowd and opening a restaurant. Those are the people who got rich. So in a big industry emergence, please try to focus on building the tools that enable the testing tools, the design tools, and even the services around that ecosystem that enable that industry. Don't you think?
I fully agree. So we said, is solar energy getting bigger in the upcoming 10 years, yes or no? Yes. And then, very fast, the second question. Will quality assurance, quality control become more important in the future than now? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Answering both questions with yes, we worked on the intersection of that industry. Solar industry, quality assurance.
Great. Please help me thank again Shukri. Thank you. We have a chance to have an equally inspiring story from another leader. We heard the operation side. We'd love to hear the investment side. Today we have the pleasure to welcome Eric Osiakwan, a Stanford graduate who chose to come back to Africa instead of staying in Silicon Valley and enjoying a great job. Eric moved to Africa, worked on an infrastructure project, built submarine cables to connect East Africa with the Middle East and the rest of the world with Etisalat. And after that, he started a fund called Chanzu Capital. And Chanzu is investing in different companies, infrastructure technologies. One of the landmark investments he has is what was called SMSGH, and it's called today Hubtel. So Eric would be the right person to talk to if you have any investment opportunity that you would like to share. Without any further ado, please help me welcome Eric.
Hello. All right. Thank you very much, Akram, for that nice introduction. And good morning to everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Great. So I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to also share my experience. Chokri's experience is incredible, and I'm going to try and tell you how entrepreneurs like him can actually lead the next decade of innovation that we will see around the world. And I'm going to share a little bit of my understanding of the historical experience and then try and use that to project into the 21st century and try to make the case for what each and every one of us in this room can do to help entrepreneurs like him lead the next decade of creativity around the world. So I always start my slides these days with this map because sometimes we become accustomed to an Africa that is too small. But this is actually the real size of Africa. So as you can see, Africa is so huge that you can fit about 2/3 of the world into Africa. And still have room for India and China. The United States fits squarely in West Africa and a little bit into North Africa. So Africa is a huge landmass. Unfortunately, the pictures that you see of Africa of the world always show Africa very small. Now, this has a psychological effect. So I've been trying to change that effect that Africa is actually very huge. Now, the second data point that is very important is that in the next 2 decades, Africa's population, which is now a little over 1 billion, is going to quadruple. So Africa is going to represent 40% of global population in the next 2 decades. What that means is that 1 in every 4 people on the planet Earth will be African. So the demographic dividend is in Africa's favor. The third most important data point is that Africa is a very youthful population. 70% of Africa's population is below 25 years. The rest of the world is an aging population. So what that means is that Africa is going to have the brains and the labor force that will run the 21st century. So this is part of the reason why I strongly believe that entrepreneurs like Chokri and etc. who are in this room are the guys that are going to lead the creativity, because we have the young brains and the young talent that are creating and innovating around the world. They may not be resident in Africa, but they're African. Right. So Africa is going to play a critical role in the 21st century creativity era. But let's step back and look a little bit at the history because it's quite fascinating. Now, in the dawn of the 21st century, 3 critical things happened. The first was the explosion of cell phones. The whole world was expecting Africa to industrialize. Somehow Africa skipped the Industrial Revolution and went into the information age, and Africa went straight to cell phones. To the extent that by 2014, cell phone ownership in Africa was at par with the United States. Actually, there's another data point that precedes this. In 1998, there were more landlines in Manhattan alone, not New York, just Manhattan, than the whole of Africa. A decade later, Africa has more cell phones than the whole of the United States. So within a decade, there was a shift. There was a leapfrog. Some of you know that terminology. And by 2014, the ownership of cell phone became very dominant in Africa. In other words, Africa basically went into the information age focused on using cell phones. So in Africa, the cell phone is the computer. Everybody, most people, see the internet by the cell phone. So that's very, very different from the rest of the world, where most people saw the web on cable, infrastructure, etc. So Africa is what I call a mobile-first continent, which leapfrogged again the rest of the world. Leapfrogged desktop, leapfrogged laptops, and went straight to cell phones. So that's very, very important. Now, the second phenomenon is connectivity. And as Akram mentioned, I was one of the guys who built some of this submarine cable. We built the first one from Mombasa in East Africa, connecting to the Middle East, which was the first submarine cable on the eastern seaboard, connecting Africa to the Middle East. Now, this submarine fiber cables basically went inland and connected with the cell phones. And so we had And so Africa became connected through these submarine cables to the rest of the world. So those submarine cables connected to the cell phones, and so Africa became a mobile web continent. And this is very, very important. So not only did we have the cell phone, but now we connected to the rest of the world using the submarine cables. And so the connectivity of these fiber networks and the cell phones became the platform for Africans to start innovating. So the third wave is what I call the connectivity wave. So in Africa, today, cell phone ownership is about 110%, which means that some people have more than one cell phone. And so most people are seeing the web as the platform for creativity, for innovation. And a lot of the entrepreneurs that you see who are part of this are entrepreneurs who are leveraging the mobile web platform to innovate, to create new ways of solving problems in their society. Some of them believe they can build the next Facebook. Some believe they can build the next Google. Now, what is very, very interesting about this paradigm shift is that just a decade ago when I was in school, and I'm sure most of you, the thing was that when you finish school, most people, you are encouraged by your family to leave and go to the West or get a job. One generation after us, they believe in creating technology. They believe that they can live in Morocco, start businesses in Morocco, and become successful. So for me, that is a very strong paradigm shift. The idea that the young generation of Africa believe in themselves, believe in their destiny, believe in the fact that they can use mobile as a platform to create the next technologies globally is quite powerful. And so the question we ask ourselves is, how can we help these entrepreneurs lead the next wave of innovation? So I'm doing that by creating a fund and helping entrepreneurs. But everybody has a role to play. But before we get to the roles that everybody has to play, what is the anecdotal evidence of success? The first is the impact of mobile. So this is a study done by the GSMA, which is the Global Association for Mobile Operators. They looked at the impact of mobile on the global south. And in Africa, the impact on gross domestic product, GDP, was at 6%, which is higher than Asia and South America. So the impact of mobile on our economies is very huge. And this is just the connectivity era. The second anecdotal evidence is a study done by Freshfields. In this study, Freshfield looks at the performance of 40 telecom, media, and technology companies across 18 stock markets in Africa. In other words, if you invested in MTN a decade ago or 2 decades ago, what would be your return? The analyzed returns was 19%, which is actually 3 times higher than oil and gas. So when I look at this data point, I'm quite fascinated that the rest of the world think Africa is a resource continent. Meanwhile, the technology sector had made more than 3 times the returns that the resource sector made in Africa. So something is wrong about the narrative that Africa is jacketed into. Africa is not a resource continent. Africa is a continent of creativity, and technology is not only making impact, but making strong returns. One of the examples is Maroc Telecom from here, which has become a global success company investing in other African countries. We can talk about MTN. I can give you a lot of telecom companies that 2 decades ago were non-existent. And those are the companies that are making those returns. And so in this study, Freshfield argues that Africa is poised for a takeoff. So now we need to apply ourselves to the fact that if we now have a platform for creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, How do we make these entrepreneurs or create the environment for them to become the most successful guys or to lead the next generation of creativity? And this is where we need to apply an ecosystem approach. So if you look at most technopoles around the world, you take Silicon Valley, you take China, you take Europe, etc. Generally, it is the building of an ecosystem. You have to build an ecosystem that empowers innovation, that empowers entrepreneurs. And there are four main actors in those ecosystems. So I'm going to go through each of the actors, and I'm going to try and supply the things that each actor must do in order to ensure that African entrepreneurs can lead the next decade of creativity. The first actor is the private sector. Most of this is mostly led by the private sector, right? So what role does the private sector have to play? The first is successful entrepreneurs in the private sector in Africa must back the next generation. And that's what I am doing. And I'm sure a lot of you in this room that are fund managers, that are entrepreneurs, like Chokri said, he is helping the next generation. I'm sure Akram is doing that with experience. So the successful entrepreneurs that have made it need to pass on the baton, right? You need to start mentoring the next generation of guys. You need to start investing. You may not put capital, but sharing your experience alone is enough. Being an inspiration to the next guy to believe that he can also do it. So if Chokri has done it, you can also do it, right? That's the story he was telling you a while ago. If he can build a global company, you can also build it. So the first thing is that the successful entrepreneurs must start backing the next generation. The third is that angel groups, early stage investors, and VC funds must plug into the equation, bringing their experience to bear, bringing their leadership to bear, bringing capital to bear on the entrepreneurs. So if you've been a successful entrepreneur, you need to think about how you can start investing in the next generation. You need to think about how to set up angel groups in Morocco, for example. Yesterday I was at dinner and I was quite fascinated to meet some of the local funds that are here that are investing in entrepreneurs. So that's great. Some of the banks have VCs, have VC funds that are investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs. That's the way to go. But the most critical point here is that there is no way local entrepreneurs will be successful globally if they don't get access to local capital. And so we need to start thinking about how we can unlock local capital. And that leads me to the next point about what government needs to do. So what is the role of government in all of this? The first is that government needs to see creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship as a strategic role in economic development. In other words, if you're in Africa, 70% of your population is youthful. So you need to plan your economic development around the youth. You need to think about how do we create incentives and mechanisms for the 70% youth to be entrepreneurial, employ the other youthful population, and create the next generation of SMEs. So this needs to be at the core of your economic development agenda. And this is very, very important because if it's not at the core of your economic development agenda, you will not be able to create the enabling environment around policy because your policy is informed by economic development agenda. So if you're a government person in this room, you need to start thinking about how you can empower the youth. You need to start thinking about how the youth are a critical part of your policy development, more so around how your strategic agenda is developed. Is the youth the centerpiece of that? Is that 70% of your population? So that needs to be the centerpiece of your planning. The third is that government needs to create a fair and transparent legal system. One of the things that make the West very successful is that the legal system works. It's independent. If you have disputes, there's a fair and legal process that you can go through to get a fair judgment. So we need to create that system. We need to make sure, government needs to make sure that there's an independent judiciary, there's independent legal processes, and make sure that they are fair and they're transparent. So that when people have disputes on business side, they can go to court and they can trust that the court will grant fair judgment. This is very, very important. It applies to regulation as well. You need to make sure your regulatory frameworks are transparent. People can be clear on what it means to get a license and what it means not to get a license. People need to know that if there's a default in a case, they can go through a judicial process and get a fair hearing. The fourth thing the government needs to do is tax incentives. Now, the reason tax incentives are very important is that At early stage investing, it's very risky. So if you are going to take that risk, you need to give them a break. You need to create some incentive for people to do that. In South Africa, the government has something called 12J. It's a section in the Financial Act which allows you to get some tax, about 50% tax rebate against early stage investing. Because of that mechanism the government instituted, South Africa has a very strong venture capital system, and I guess a lot of you know that. It's because of this simple incentive that the government created. So most wealthy people in South Africa believe that if I invest early stage, I get 50% against tax. So they put their money into a lot of the funds that are investing in the entrepreneurs. Recently, the Singaporean government did something even more interesting in Singapore. They said if you invest in a Singaporean startup and the startup fails, they'll give you 50% of the money back. So today, most global investors are going to Singapore because they will get their money back if the startup fails. And you know, the government is creating an interesting example there. That example is that they believe that innovation entrepreneurs are the bedrock of the economic development. So they've created a system where they can attract capital from around the world to invest in those startups. All right. So as a government, you need to think about the fact that this is what the Singaporean government is doing. What are you going to do in Morocco to attract capital? Because you need capital to stimulate the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So you can create incentive. Tax is one of them. There are different incentives that you can create. You can create tax incentive for entrepreneurs. For example, say if you start a company in the first 3 or 4 years, you don't pay taxes. Because, I mean, if you settle as a small entrepreneur with taxes, yesterday I was chatting with someone, taxes here about 31% or something like that, corporate tax, when you get to a certain threshold, that's very high. So you can say, as an entrepreneur, you don't pay any tax for the first 3 years. When you go to a certain level, you start paying a little bit of tax, and then you get to that level, right? So you need to start thinking strategically about how you create certain incentive that can enable the entrepreneurs and enable the release of local capital. The fifth thing is matching funds, right? So the Singaporean government already has this. The other governments in the UK and other places where the government is able to match boot for boot what you actually invest in. In Israel, this is how the investing ecosystem was catalyzed in Israel. The government said anybody who raised the fund, the government will give you will match whatever you raise. So most of the funds in Israel, the early days, basically had government matching the money they raised. So if you raise 2 million, the government will give you another 2 million. And then you go out and invest. And that's how they created a lot of innovation in Israel. So matching funds is one way to and then the last is that government needs to create a de-risking environment. In other words, you need to create a culture where entrepreneurship is celebrated. That people will find it interesting. People will find the idea of starting companies easy. And this takes time. This is a cultural thing, right? It's going to take time. But I always say that, look, entrepreneurship has been in Africa many years. It's been at the beginning, so it's not a new thing, right? We need to start celebrating entrepreneurs, and that's very, very important. So that's the role of government. I mean, the other things that government can do, but these are some of the critical things. So what is the role of research and academia? Who are the third actors? The most important thing is research and academia need to start seeing entrepreneurship and innovation as part of curriculum. Unfortunately, one of the challenges you see in Africa is that most of our institutions don't empower entrepreneurship and innovation. We need to start changing that. We need to start seeing curriculum that has a strong emphasis on entrepreneurship and innovation. We need to see it from all the way from tertiary level all the way down to primary education. That you need to empower those who are entrepreneurs. Of course, not everyone is an entrepreneur. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be an entrepreneur. But I'm saying we need to create a mechanism for those who are entrepreneurs to get access to the education they need so that they can be the guys who employ the other guys who are managers. So you need managers, you need administrators, you need developers, you need all the skill set. I'm saying that the entrepreneurs are not getting the right attention within our curriculum. If you look at most curriculum, entrepreneurship and innovation is not there. So we need to do something about empowering that curriculum. And it means that there needs to be a strong interaction between research, academia, and private sector. We also need a lot of research and development lab. A lot of the ideas that entrepreneurs develop go through a lot of research and development. And we don't have a lot of labs for that. So sometimes just the cost of doing R&D alone will discourage you. So you have an idea about solving a very interesting technology problem. But the environment to just test it, do the research on it is non-existent. So we need to start seeing more research and development labs being developed around the continent. And this is very important for helping entrepreneurs crystallize their ideas. The fourth thing is that it's around intellectual property. Most of the big innovation that you see around the world, the biggest value in them is the intellectual property. So we need to institute strong legal regimes in Africa for protecting intellectual property. This is one of the biggest challenges that investors we have, because you want to invest in companies, and unfortunately the legal system is not strong to protect the IP, so you end up putting the IP offshore, put it in another country. So you just took the biggest value that was created in the country and then put it in another country, because that country created a legal system to protect intellectual property. So unfortunately, you just lost the value. And as investors, that's what you're investing in, so you have to prioritize that. So unfortunately, because we want to invest in entrepreneurs, we end up with a system that is not supportive of keeping the intellectual property in country, right? So the intellectual property ends up leaving the country. So we need to start looking into how we can create strong legal system to support intellectual property. And then there are institutions that have intellectual property but really sit on it. You know, there's a lot of research and development institutions that develop a lot of intellectual property, but they don't commercialize it. So it's almost like the reverse side of the equation, right? So we need to find mechanisms where these institutions work with entrepreneurs to unlock the value in those intellectual properties that they develop. Because you can do the best research. If nobody is using it as a product or as a service, then it's just your own imagination. You don't unlock the value. The last is that academia and research need to provide the human capital that is needed. Entrepreneurship, innovation, building companies is a human sport. You need to develop the human capital that is needed. And this is very, very critical. I'll go to the last actor, which is civil society. So you say, what role does civil society have to play? They have a lot of role to play. Today, a lot of the incubators and accelerators you see in Africa are funded by civil society organizations. So this is important because you need to create that environment, those incubation programs, accelerators, and acceleration programs that enable the entrepreneurship, enables the ideas to come around. Civil society needs to help create the market for consumption of local goods and services. Very, very important point. Part of the challenge that we have in Africa is that we don't consume African products and services. Say, oh, the product is not good, it's not world class. Yeah, but you have to start consuming it for the guy to perfect it. So I say, also demand quality of service. So not only consume Moroccan goods, but if the goods is not good, demand that the service provider provides good services. Remember China. Just 20 years ago, we know we use Chinese product. But over time, it's gotten better. Today, you use Chinese product. You buy Chinese things and you like it. Because somebody used this and demanded quality of service. And over time, it gets better. So we don't only need to consume African products and services, but if they are not good, we need to ask for better products and services. You have to demand quality of service. That's how you push the entrepreneurs to make it better so it becomes global standard. So with that said, I think those are the critical things that I believe that entrepreneurs and need to do, government need to do, civil society need to do, and if we focus on these things, we can actually create some of the entrepreneurs that will build and create some of the amazing innovations that we'll see in the 21st century, and that's why we're investing. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Very useful information, but I have some good news for you.
Yep.
And for the audience. Morocco is already doing matching and de-risking.
Awesome. That's
so
great.
If you invest in Morocco through funds, if you lose, I don't know if you met CCG, but they will guarantee 60% of your investment.
That's an amazing.
Better than Singapore. I think they looked at Singapore and said, let's do better than Singapore.
That's great.
There are some issues, though. I think my humble experience with Morocco in the venture capital market and the venture capital scene, I saw that from that side, Morocco is doing a lot of great things. I think that side of the government is kind of siloed from the rest. Because, okay, money is one thing. I want to share with you what's going on here because I want you to tell me how you're overcoming this in other parts of Africa. Let's talk about education. You build a startup here. You want to scale. You don't have enough engineers. You don't have enough anything, as a matter of fact. There is a clear brain drain today, and whoever gets enough experience would move to France, Germany, Canada, US. That's number one. Number two, employment laws. You're in a startup.
people want their severance packages. You raised $100,000. You hired people who were not up to your expectations to deliver. We're talking about fast growth, hard work. As you said, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And you can't fire people that quick, you know. Tax laws, employment laws are very rigid. Payments, that the laws are not obeyed here, are not respected. I'll give you an example. At Al Butula, we have 50% of our revenues are still in the customers' accounts. They're all like 5-6 months late. It's crazy, you know. It's crazy. Late is better than no payment, right?
Right.
So I don't know how you do it in Africa if you can guarantee the payment. So how do you overcome those obstacles, those challenges with government when governments don't invest in education unless you know of an African government that already done it? Would love to hear about it. Two, laws are not respected. You know, and you know, the lack of
the brain drain. Okay, so I'll take those three very quickly. So on the first one, yes, you're right. Unfortunately, when you look at the statistical data across Africa, investments in education have been declining over the last 2 decades. It's quite unfortunate, generally, when you look at the statistics. So we need to change that. We need to start investing and making education more accessible. But most importantly, we need to start investing in critical skill sets that are needed for the information age. That really needs to change. And like I said, if the government sees it as a central part of your economic development agenda, then you start investing and prioritizing that. Because yes, Africa has so many problems, right? The challenge is that the government has so many problems to solve. But if you can solve certain critical problems like the human capital problem, you actually end up solving some of the other problems down the line. Right, so it's about prioritization.
Absolutely.
One. Two.
So human capital is the first one.
It's very, very critical. It's actually, I can't overemphasize it more because more so in the information age, you need people who have those critical skill sets. That's how you're going to be competitive. You're not going to be competitive trading goods and services, unfortunately, in the 21st century. The second question around revenue collection is that one of the phenomenal things about Africa is the prepaid system. So you know why mobile money worked in Africa? Is because a company called Vodacom in South Africa started this prepaid scratch card system, where if you don't buy the airtime, in other words, if you don't put the money forward, you don't talk on the phone. So one of my advice to entrepreneurs is that make sure your system is prepaid. Try to find a way of making sure people pay you upfront. Because unfortunately in Africa, or everywhere else in the world, when people use the service, they're reluctant to pay. And then the problem in Africa, you don't have a system to then collect the money. Right, so then you're stuck. Then you have to have debt collectors go after them. But if you can try and make your system prepaid, and most importantly, I tell entrepreneurs also that in Africa, try to get to cash flow early in your entrepreneurial journey, because getting cash flow is very, very important. Because if you don't get to cash flow, there's not enough investors that will give you money for a long time for you to survive. But if you can go to cash flow early, you actually have a longer chance of being successful. So try to deal with ideas and figure out the business model very quickly. Get revenue coming in earlier enough so that you can survive. And then the third part about the legal system, people not respecting laws and stuff like that. It's just there needs to be huge cultural shifts as well, right? So we need to start also enforcing the laws in Africa. One of the things you realize in Africa is that it's not that the laws are not there. The legal systems are there. It's enforcement. And you need to enforce it so strong that it becomes a deterrent so that other people will not fall foul. So we need a more stronger enforcement mechanism. Obviously, we need some more resources to do that. And again, this goes to prioritization from the government side.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess we will move to the panel sessions. Give you a few seconds. No.
Yeah, perfect. How did you? No. Okay, perfect. Excellent. Okay, so after those two inspirational and educational keynotes, we'd like to go and discuss in a panel fashion and hopefully open to a better interaction with the audience. It is my pleasure to welcome Rashid Oulad Qdim. He's the Director of FinTech and Business Channels at S2M, who will be moderating the panel of Shaping Africa.
So they are waiting for me to introduce them. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here to help StartUP Morocco in this edition. I'm so sorry because I was supposed to come the last 2 days, but I was quite so ill. I'm so pleased. My name is Rashid Oulad Qdim, and I'm the head of business channel and fintech for a Moroccan group called S2M in Casablanca. I will be happy to moderate this panel around startup shaping Africa, and I'm very pleased to welcome 4 pure Africans, but they are very international too. I will start with Mwamba Ali. He's the founder and manager partner of Savannah, East Africa. A very old friend, Marcelo Schermer, from Yoko, South Africa. And Morocco Cameroonese, Mark Campaign, which is the founder, manager, partner of Harvest Asset Management. And finally, Mr. Tariq Fadili, who's the CEO and the president of Algo Consulting. Thank you very much to welcome my 4th friends and experts from Africa. I'm very happy because it's not very easy to summarize all what we will see in 1 hour, which is quite very difficult. So we'll go through direct actions very quickly. But I would like to share with you something very important. Africa is many countries, but Africa is one continent. And today we have Africa representative here. Ali is from east of Africa, so we will have all the experience from the eastern of Africa. We'll go through South Africa with Marcelo, through to Cameroon, Central and West Africa, and we will finish by Mr. Fadili for Morocco and his experience. We will split this panel in 3 phases. The first phase is to share with you and with our panelists their experience. The second phase will be dedicated to some interactive questions between us to show you how efficiency is very important in Africa. And finally, we will give something like 10 to 15 minutes to you, public, if you have any question. So I will not go through the biography of each panelist because you have them on the program. So in order to save time, I will first start with you, Mr. Ali. If you can give us some insight about you, your company, what you are doing in East Africa, the 6 countries that you are handling from Tanzania and Kenya, and how you see Africa according to your experience. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here, my second time in Morocco. I'm from Tanzania originally. I live in Arusha, northern Tanzania near Kilimanjaro. And I spent most of my life in the US and UK, 20 plus years. And I moved back to East Africa 6 years ago to start Savannah Fund. I lived in Silicon Valley prior to that, working in venture capital, and decided to take my experience working in early stage investment in the tech scene back to East Africa. So in 2011-ish, I raised a small fund and moved to Nairobi and worked with the iHub, which is at the time the first workspace incubator on the continent. And at the same time, that's when M-Pesa was growing quite a bit. And so Savannah Fund was founded in 2011-12, and we invested in 14 companies through an accelerator model. So investing small amounts of money, about $20,000 up to $50,000 in companies from Kenya, Uganda. We even had companies from Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and Ghana come to us, to Nairobi, for 3 to 6 month program. Of those companies, about 4 of them are still around, so high risk, high failure. But those companies have raised follow-on funding from our Silicon Valley investors and partners, 500 startups being one of them. And so I helped build a bridge from Silicon Valley back to East Africa for the first time in a compelling way. Some of my investors included Tim Draper of DFJ, who invested in Skype, Hotmail, Tesla. Also some of the PayPal mafia, they're called, who, Russ Simmons founded Yelp and a bunch of other investors. 500 Startups is also a PayPal mafia company, they also invested. So that was initially our first couple of years. And then from around 2015, 16, we started doing more seed investing as we saw more programs come into the space. For example, Marcello was working at SeedStars, that was doing a lot of early stage work. Y Combinator, 500 Startups are taking more African companies in Silicon Valley. Google launched a Launchpad accelerator. Even the World Bank now is an accelerator for Francophone countries that launched last month, I believe. And so we moved up the stack a little bit and started funding companies that needed more capital of 100,000 or more, up to $1 million or so. So we became more of a seed investor and Series A level. And so we invested in 12 companies in addition to the 14 I mentioned. Actually 13 now, we've made a recent investment. So 27 companies in total. And we also started to go across Africa. So from our Kenya roots, we started to go into Nigeria. We started to go into South Africa. And so our main focus today is probably 80% of our deals are in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. And we invest in everything from fintech, obviously it's a big one, we'll probably talk about a lot today with the panel's experience. Education technology, we've done drone in the agricultural space in South Africa. We've even done a crazy Bitcoin exchange investment in Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe is a very special country with no national currency and 7 unofficial currencies. And also logistics is an area that I like as well, to enable commerce. So that's kind of my quick background.
Good, we will go through more details. I will jump to you, Marcelo, because for the last 20 years, there were a very big fight between Kenya and South Africa in terms of technology. So we will see how Yoko, they have made it in South Africa. Please.
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Marcello. I'm looking after expansion for a South African fintech company called Yoko. The company started 5 years ago when the founders realized that there was a big problem with SMEs in how easy it was for them to accept card payments at the point of sale. A very special thing about South Africa is it's a market that has a 75% card penetration. So every customer walks around with a card and wants to pay with their card. It's a market that is virtually cashless today. But at the same time, the banks haven't really done a good job at allowing SMEs to accept card payments. And so there was only a 6% acceptance penetration on the other side. And so we came in and basically did a mobile point of sale company where the consumer buys a card reader and can basically start accepting payment instantly. Now in the past 3 years, we signed up 35,000 merchants, which makes us the largest, basically the largest merchant acquirer in the country that's not a bank. And we're signing up 2,500 merchants a month. Raised our Series B in September, where we raised $16 million to expand both in South Africa and outside of South Africa. And also 2 months ago went into offering SMEs cash advances, where we don't just help them process payments, but based on that, we build a trading profile, we build a bit of a credit history, and now actually allow SMEs to get cash advances as well. And so the idea behind the company is really how do we make life for SMEs easier, and how do we do that at scale? And that includes things like payment, managing your business, and accessing funds. And the interesting thing about the company is really we've broken a few paradigms or assumptions when it comes to serving SMEs. So we're acquiring SMEs digitally, we're acquiring them at scale. We have lower fraud rates than the banks, and we can now even do loans that can be accessed digitally with the click of a button. So that's kind of the company there, and we're now of course looking at expanding both into deeper in South Africa, where we think there's a big opportunity, but also in markets outside of South Africa where helping SMEs get paid and run their business better is as big of a problem as in other countries.
Thank you, Marcelo. How many employees you are today?
Sorry?
How many employees Yoko is today?
In how many markets?
No, how many employees? I mean, how many?
Oh, we now have 115 employees, with an office with a headquarter in Cape Town, an office in Johannesburg. So we're sitting at about 115 staff.
Very good experience. We'll jump to Mark. Mark, he was working for the last 4 years for a Moroccan insurance, RMA Watania, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly.
And you decided to found your own company, Harvest Assets Management.
Yeah.
Why?
Salam alaikum. Labes alik. Exactly. I used to live in Morocco for 4 years. I worked for the investment management firm of RMA Watania called RMA Capital. We launched in 2012 the first African fund who invested mainly in equity markets all around the continent. So here in Morocco, I discovered what is investment management, what is a mutual fund. Back in the days, I was working in Cameroon in an insurance company as a treasury. And before that, I was working in France, in Société Générale, in the trading platform. So in Morocco, I discovered it, and then go back in Cameroon for some day off in vacation. And I went to my bank and asked for the same kind of products. They tell me that no, they don't know what is it. I say, oh, come on! I want to do a deposit with a fixed rate. They say we don't have it here. So I realized that in my space where I come from, Central Africa, a mutual fund was not existing. And then I decided to go back in my country to begin that business. It's a very complicated business in terms of because it's a regulatory one. We need to have a license. We need to have a minimum capital. And then I look for some friend. We have zero money, but a little bit of bonus from RMA Capital. And we put all that money together and got the agreement last year to launch the first independent asset management firm in Central Africa. The second one is Tijari. Tijari did it 2 years ago. They launched a subsidiary there because Tijari has many banks, commercial banks in Central Africa, in Cameroon, in Gabon, and in Congo. We follow them the same track. Today we manage 20 million euro by 1 year. It's quite a good thing because we definitely change the life of people in terms of savings. Back in the days, they didn't have. They know that the banks are there for the security to put the money, and the bank charge them for it. So today they realize that with the savings they can have a return, and this is completely new horizon for them. This is a little bit about.
Thank you so much. It's so enough, I think, for the introduction because we will come back to more details. Okay. I will finish the presentation with our friend Tariq Fadili. Very specific thing because when we were preparing this panel in the room next to this door, I discovered something because everyone in Morocco and in Africa was, focusing on his TV when the TGV has been launched by the King and Mr. Macron a few days ago, and they learned that this guy is behind the first ticket that we have given to the King Mohammed VI and Macron. He's the one who has developed the application for him.
Assalamu alaikum.
Tell us something other that you are doing in terms of your career?
Well, thank you. That's actually heartwarming to hear that. My name is Tariq bin Sliman for the Moroccans. I actually started Algo Consulting after I left Microsoft in 2007, and the idea was to be a subcontractor to Microsoft. So Algo was a one-man show, essentially me. Today we're about 71 people with offices headquartered in Rabat. New office coming up soon in Casablanca. It's the last office because before Casablanca we have an office in Dubai, Denver, Colorado, and we have 15 engineers in Hyderabad, India. So the company started small, like I said, and what's really exciting about Algo is not the revenue, it's actually the impact of the projects that we're delivering. We just said, our largest project was the TGV ticketing system. It was a moment of pride for us to see the first tickets coming out, especially that, this is coming from a company that started with, 10,000 dirhams years back. So other impactful projects we delivered is the platform Talim.ma that sends back results. And that's important to me as someone who has his high school degree from a public high school in Ben Sliman. And when you show up to see your results and someone erases the board and you don't get to know if you passed or not for 3 days. So it was important for me to solve that issue for all of Moroccans. 3 years ago I started my second company, which is La Marocaine de e-Service. Also a great team that got around one issue, which is how to democratize access to government services using an innovative approach. So we're behind the platform that was called e-Muqata'a with e-Muqaddam and all that. So now the platform is called Oraqi. We're launching it in FAS. We tried this week with issues. We're also negotiating with Casablanca and the Ministry of Interior to see how we could deploy this all over the country. And the idea is to give citizens access to most used government services, which is signature notary, copy certification, residence certificate, and so on and so forth. So that's in a nutshell, or two nutshells.
Excellent. Thank you so much. As you can see, we have 2 startups and 2 investors. I have 2 questions, one for the investors and one for the startup. I will start by the startup because the investors, they talk a lot, they have a lot of money, so they have to invest. So I will start with the startups. Because everyone here will dream about to create a startup and how he has to do. What are the obstacles? What are the difficulties? What are the main steps that someone has to follow? Because it's very easy to create and to have an idea, but not every idea is a startup. What do you, according to your experience, Mr. Fadili, it was a dream, it was an idea, and how difficult it was to create and to reach this level?
I'm not an expert in the subject, but I'm just going to talk about my point of view. In my case, it wasn't something I was looking forward to. I came to a conclusion lately. I've been telling people that to be an entrepreneur, you have to be either crazy or you have to be very naive. I think it takes a combination of naivete and craziness. So sometimes it is your dream to become an entrepreneur and you work towards that, but sometimes it's just an idea. In my case, it was an opportunity, actually. For Algo Consulting, I saw a gap between what Microsoft does and what the client needs. And there's a gap that someone needs to fill. And if you can fill it successfully, you might be able to build a business. So if I were to compare people who know technology, if you compare Microsoft to SAP, they're both IT companies, but the difference is Microsoft is a strict product company, where SAP is focused on business process. So a little hybrid that pulls the two together was the idea. So I saw the opportunity and I jumped. The obstacles in a country like ours are first cultural. When you go from being a salaried employee at Microsoft to get on your own, the first problem you're going to have is with your own father. It's going to tell you you're crazy. You're leaving, good salary, and you're starting something with 10,000 dirhams, and you want to go after public tenders. So if you believe in it, if you think you got an idea, what's to lose? And then always speaking about the culture, I think we're in a culture that condemns failure. We're all programmed not to fail. So it's catastrophic to start a business and then, you know, you fail and it's badly viewed. So that's always my fear. I mean, in 11 years as an entrepreneur, I think I almost failed so many times, or failed at many times. And the idea is just to pick up where you left and start again. So I think it takes also being hard-headed, not listening a lot to people. I mean, the example of Waraqi, the day I got the idea that Moroccans should not go to Muqata'a to notarize signature, and they should not go look for Muqaddam to get a residence certificate. A lot of people told me, you're crazy. You know, try something else. You can't get rid of that because it's so many hurdles. So the idea is you listen to feedback, but if you decide to do it, you have to do it. You can't worry about failures, especially young people. I mean, I wish I started earlier. So failure is going to be there. You just have to be intuitive and try to find resources and try it. And what's the worst that can happen? Nobody's going to kill you. I mean, you're going to fail and try something else.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. Marcelo, I mean, knowing the South African market, 4 families, 4 big acquirers, 4 big banks, Yoko to come and to take 35,000 merchants, SMEs, everyone is running after the SMEs. What is the secret behind?
I think, so I briefly touched on that at the beginning, but I think when it comes to serving SMEs, there's generally a few assumptions that people make about how hard it is to serve SMEs, right? So there's assumptions where people say SMEs actually don't want to formalize, SMEs want to avoid taxes, so they're never going to accept digital payments. There's assumptions around saying SMEs are, you know, like not tech savvy, not educated, so they're never going to use a tech product. So when you walk out at the beginning and you ask people for advice, they would tell you, no, SMEs are never going to buy this because they want to avoid taxes, they want to stay informal, they're happy with cash, this and this and this. What we found out is that that's actually not the case. Because SMEs are entrepreneurs, and if you can come up with a product that helps them grow their business, they want to grow their business. And so what we've basically found is like that a lot of the assumptions around SMEs in the South African context were wrong, because nobody has ever bothered coming up with a product that actually makes it easy for them to make more money. And so we then came and said, and the other thing which you alluded to, the market condition in South Africa was in a way that about 50% of the SMEs that applied for card machines at the bank got rejected. And a lot of, and there's an even bigger proportion of SMEs that never even bothered applying because the process is too long, they don't have the documentation, and so on and so forth. So now we basically came with a product that helps you make money. We started a purely digital distribution model. So you go on a website, you sign up online, we deliver the reader to your door the next day, whereas in the banking environment, getting a card machine would take you about 6 weeks, if not even more. We're now approving about 96% of the applications because we've built fraud and risk scoring models that basically work with an SME and not against them. And yeah, it really comes down to, it's a product that helps them make money. We've made it more accessible, easier to get, and there's a lot of demand in the market. And the last thing I would say is even today, with the 35,000 merchants we have, 70% of these merchants have never accepted card payments before. So we're not in the business of competing with the banks. We're not in the business of taking business away from the banks. The banks have left such a big market unserved that you can build a very sizable business in that. And I think really that's the opportunity that we are honing in on.
Excellent. Congratulations, because I know this market for the last 20 years. I was working for the payment system for the last 20 years, and I know that it's not very easy to go to the adoption of the card and the payments. So it's a very huge work you have done as a startup. Mr. Ali, You have a great experience in funding a lot of companies, and you work for those bad mafias and small mafias, big mafias, and African startup. Do you think the startup will shape in Africa? Do you think the startup in Africa will get the success that others in Silicon Valley and others have got?
Yeah, so one of the things that's really important about my experience, I believe, is that I had a very founder-friendly investor experience. I don't know if that, so I'll give you the situation. I found myself sitting in Silicon Valley trying to fund startups, but at the earliest stages. So 2 people, the acceleration model. So I'm sure you're aware of Y Combinator, for funding startups. We were like the 3rd or 4th accelerator. It was IO Ventures. And it was a boutique. So we weren't doing 50 companies in one class. We were doing 4 or 5 out of a coffee shop. It was very, very small. And actually, one of the things that I really remembered back then was they really believed in 20% time. So, Google has this 20% time. You spend time on other projects. And so they all looked at me, all these investors, saying, well, you are African. You know about Africa, right? Why don't you spend your time figuring out what we can do as VCs in Africa? And so 80% of my job was helping startups in Silicon Valley. 20% of the time was looking at Africa. I actually started a company. So a lot of people think that investors are not entrepreneurs, but some investors actually were entrepreneurs, because to start an investment firm, you're an entrepreneur, right? And so I tried to build something very close to my heart, being from Tanzania, which is a travel booking platform for safaris. Because Tanzania, of course, has the best safaris in the world, Serengeti, Kilimanjaro, whatever. And I actually raised $200,000 from a Tanzanian angel investor who had a lodge on the Mount Kilimanjaro and was the country's best lawyer. He actually represented the best law firm in Tanzania as a legal counsel. And it went pretty well in the first 6 months. And I was running this from Silicon Valley and in Tanzania. And then something started to go wrong when I realized that he just didn't get it. First, he made me hire all his relatives. So I'm sure this is familiar to many of you in Africa. And he refused to have any expertise from Kenya, because Tanzania and Kenya are very famously rivals. And just imagine me, I'm in Silicon Valley seeing all these companies getting funded, great terms, very founder-friendly, people getting their hands dirty, helping the companies. Then in Tanzania, this angel investors just not playing the game right. That was the inspiration for me to fund Savannah Fund, is to start an investment firm, VC firm that was founder-friendly. That's how it got started. And whenever I invest in companies, I try and get really early and start help the companies. I feel that we need more of that in Africa. I see too many VC firms who call themselves early stage investors, but they only do Series B and beyond. And they're not willing to start smaller funds and write the small checks and support entrepreneurs, right? Also, I think mentorship is very important. So, for example, one day I'm sure I'll call Marcelo, I'll call people here to help the companies that we're investing in fintech. So I think that's what's lost in Africa right now, and we need to build, is that entrepreneurs helping other entrepreneurs. That's what builds really good companies, because Silicon Valley, that's what it's based on. The founders of Intel help the founders of Microsoft, help the founders of Google and Facebook, help the founders of Uber. If you look at all these companies, the employees move, and the founders come out of those companies, and they pass on knowledge about fundraising. In fact, angel investment comes from successful entrepreneurs who've made money and putting into the next generation. So I'm trying to help that loop, and I hope the companies that I fund that succeed will start to do that more and more. That's what's critically missing, and that's what I'm trying to solve. I think otherwise the investor role for helping startups at the early stages is broken if we don't focus on that. Less financiers, more operational investors.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ali. Mark, West Africa, or let's say Central Africa, what is your point of view on that? What do you think, in fact? Because, I know there are 2 schools. There are the East of Africa, Kenya and Tanzania, and the West and Central Africa, which is another school. What do you think from your side?
I think that I've been living in Morocco in the past, traveling in the West, being from Central Africa. I will give some tips that people should have in mind when they want to start a business in Morocco and go in Sub-Saharan Africa. The first thing for me is to make there's a clear difference between the perception and the reality. You need to go on the ground to see exactly what's happened there, because sometimes people say Africa, Francophone Africa, but there's many differences between countries, many differences between even in language. There's many differences. The second thing that I will mention is that you need to think about synergize. You need to find people locally who can help understand what you are doing. You need to have a local contact. It's very important to see exactly, to have insight from the people, the behavior of the people on the ground. The third thing I would say is to think win-win. When you go there in those countries, you have to think that what I will bring to those people and what I will take. You don't have to think only by yourself. This is the third advice I will give to the small startup. And maybe the last thing that I will add is that you should well, it's mainly what Miley said. You should be well prepared in terms of funding. You should first of all put first thing first, that your own market, your first market is well established. You have well developed and understand your model, so that because you will have another constraint there. We'll have, for example, in Morocco, when we want to launch an investment management firm, it took you at least 2 to 3 months to get the agreement. For us, in the website of the regulatory, they said the same thing, but it took us 9 months to get it. So this is the reality on the ground, and I think most people should have it in mind when they go to Sub-Saharan.
Thank you so much for all of you for your all the experience you share with us. We are coming to the end of this panel. We still have something like 14 minutes in front of me, because we have to finish around 12:05. The floor is open to you. If you have any question to our panelists, don't really hesitate. The floor is open in English, in Arabic, and in French. I will do the translator, even in Swahili for him. I have been 72 times in Kenya, so I can speak Swahili now. Not yet for South Africa. Afrikaans is quite difficult. Is there anyone who can help us to, or I will do it myself? I will do it myself, no problem. Zineb, c'est bon.
Hello everybody, my name is Youssef. I want to ask Tariq Fadili about your venture, and how did you switch from working at Microsoft and getting your first client, or making your first contacts and connections and stuff like that?
That is a very good question, and like I always say, as young people, we've always been told that you can't start a successful business if you're not well connected, or if you don't know people. So the first algo client was actually Microsoft. So
how did you get that?
Well, that's a good question. Back then, what happened was I saw that there is an opportunity, and I saw that Microsoft partners that I worked with as a Microsoft employee knew how to do everything. If you're Microsoft, they can talk your language. If you're Oracle, they can tell you what you want to hear. If you're SAP, they will make you happy. If you're Cisco, and so forth. But I don't believe that someone could master a lot of things. I think you can master just one technology. So to me, the clients that Microsoft was serving was only providing technology. Nobody was getting at the business level of the client. So I had 2 clients that I worked at, Zain in Jordan, which is a telecom company, and ONCF here in Morocco. And what I noticed was that both clients are spending a lot of money to build systems, but nobody is discussing a roadmap. What's going to happen post-production? Once the system is deployed, who's going to maintain it? Who's going to make it evolve? What version are we going to be at 5 years from now? What can we do? Nobody was talking about this. Everybody was talking about solving the current issue, but nobody was talking about the future. And I thought, well, the future, Microsoft can't do it. The partners can't do it. But if we provide an agile company or service, I think we can land into something. So to me, it was, to be honest, it was something that I was trying. I wasn't sure it was going to work. So I went with it. Hiring the first employees was hard because I didn't have any money saved up to hire engineers. So I convinced one of my buddies from high school, who's still with us today, and another friend who was a technician. I told them, listen, I can't pay you salaries, but if we work at this client for 6 months and show them, because seeing is believing them. You can't show up with a PowerPoint presentation and tell a CEO of ONCF, hey, I can do this for you. especially when you're nobody, a startup. But if you say, hey, I'm a subcontractor to Microsoft, you pay me as an architect, but I'm bringing these two guys with me. They cost you nothing. They're just here to learn and to help me. And let us work. Here's our phone number. You can call us from 6 to midnight. It will only ring once. We will answer, and this is what we will do. So we did that for 6 months. It was hard. Even the guys, at some point, they stopped believing that it's going to happen. And then after 6 months, we showed them the data. We said, okay, this is what we did in 6 months. We had these incidents. You have a problem in this system, it needs to change. The new system needs to do this, and so forth. So when they saw that, they believed, and they saw the impact. So that was the click. So.
Thank you. Any other? We'll take just 2 more questions in order to respect the timing. I hope this one will be for the investors.
Bonjour tout le monde, je préfère parler en français. Bon, aujourd'hui plus que jamais, nous vivons dans l'ère d'une deuxième révolution. Après la première qui était la redécouverte de l'imprimerie, l'Amérique et la médecine. Cette deuxième renaissance, c'est le numérique. Et toute révolution, bel et bien, passe par 3 étapes que M. Tariq a déjà mentionné. La première, c'est crazy. Ces étapes sont ridicules, dangereuses, et puis c'est évident. Et c'est pas moi qui ai créé ces étapes, c'est M. Idriss Aberkin. C'est un neurocognicien qui a eu 3 doctorats à l'âge de 29 ans, et qui est vacataire à plusieurs universités françaises et américaines aussi. Bon, je suis sûr que chacun des intervenants a pensé que ces étapes alors, et a passé par ces étapes. Alors ma question est la suivante. Comment ils sont surpassés tous ces obstacles afin de réussir leur start-up? Et est-ce que la start-up d'aujourd'hui respecte ce qu'on appelle l'économie infinie et l'économie du savoir, ou bien de la connaissance? Merci.
Okay, I will try to translate it. If I made a mistake, it's my fault. I mean, he went through an explanation that someone has given in terms of all the steps that you need. This is especially for the startup founders, by the way, but I will ask the question for Marcelo. Probably he's the one who has to I mean, you go through, when you found your startup, you go through a lot of steps and difficulties. What are today let's say, corrige-moi si je me trompe pour la question. What are all the steps and the assumptions that you have put in place to avoid those difficulties and to go on? Because it's not very easy to launch a startup in Africa.
So I think, as a first point, I don't think there's a single founder that has successfully raised money that's going to tell you it was easy. So I don't think you'll ever get to a point where you can avoid obstacles when fundraising, right? I think depending on what stage you're fundraising at, there's different challenges and different issues that you need to go through. But the really important thing is preparation, right? Know what numbers your investors need, know what documents your investors need, know what your investors are looking for. Be very diligent about finding investors that are actually into your industry, into your stage, and just make sure you know your stuff, right? And I think so preparation, like all the successful founders I've seen raise money are like have this down. That's one. 2, one big issue, especially when you're fundraising in the early days, is that fundraising actually takes a lot of time, and people underestimate the impact it has on your business, right? So especially in the early days, you see like when the founder takes 6 months to go fundraising, the numbers go down. And that's something you need to manage because it has 2 effects. 1, it has the effect that the numbers goes down. 2, it has the effect that when the numbers go down, you might become less interesting for the investors you're looking at. So I think you need to manage that attention gap where you need to make sure the business is running while you're fundraising. And you need to make sure that you basically know who you're talking to, know what they want to hear. Well, not necessarily know what they want to hear, but tell them the right things. and make sure you have the numbers and the documents and everything ready so that it goes as smooth as possible, but it's still not going to be easy.
Yeah, what I will have is that one thing that I think is important to have in mind is to be passionate. You need to believe in your business, and because you will have obstacles anyway. You have also human obstacle, regulatory obstacle, customer obstacle. People who don't believe in you, so you need to be passionate to transfer that passion. Secondly, is that you need to understand to address a key issue, to have clearly in your mind that you are addressing a key issue. You know a problem, you know exactly what is the problem, and you are a solution for that problem. This is sometimes what the VC and the vessel want to have in mind. So for me, these are two things I can have. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Mr. Fadili was to add something.
I wanted to say something about obstacles. Entrepreneurship is all about obstacles. I think successful entrepreneurs are the ones that get to be with time some sort of masochists that love pain and love problems. I mean, at some point you have to be, because you find yourself in situations dealing with minor problems and then huge problems. And I'm going to describe one in French. I'm sorry, because that one speaks. So if you ask me what's the worst day in your life as an entrepreneur, I'll tell you the day that, I'm continuing in English, the day that we had to submit our offer to the TGV tender. We needed 3 million dirhams pour 3 millions de dirhams pour la caution provisoire, non, 4 millions de dirhams pour la caution provisoire et 3 millions après pour la définitive. La réponse était le 10. Je devais payer les salariés le 27. Donc, au milieu de tout ça, il y avait une saisie des impôts. Donc, tu as la saisie des impôts, la caution qui va se là, les salariés qui vont se là. Et au milieu de tout ça, tu as الناس تقول لك عيرتني في الإيميل مضارب أنا مع هذا. Donc, so you really have to be able to manage that little HR issue between these two guys fighting, because if you tell them, go away, I have bigger problems to manage, they won't take it well. They don't care if you have to solve all these problems in a week. They care about their little issues. So if you're not ready to face that without going into complete depression, but it's fun now looking back at it. I don't know how I went through it. I don't even remember what happened, but it's fun. You have to be able to look at problems as that's what you do. Every day you wake up, you're going to have a problem, and if you're not willing to solve that problem, maybe you should just stick to something easy. Nothing in life is easy, and entrepreneurship is hard, but it's rewarding. It's rewarding because it's fulfilling. It actually gives you the sense of purpose. It's like, why am I doing this? It's not I'm doing this to make money, but why I'm doing it. So.
Thank you very much for your question. I mean, I'm Maurice, so sorry, I will not take any more questions because we are arriving to the end. We have just still 2 minutes. Thank you so much for following with us this panel. I will tell you just for the last 2 minutes a very nice conclusion. It's not very easy, by the way, to summarize all the experience of all the people you have around this panel in 1 hour. You still have them for the full afternoon, except you are going to the city center. But from now to 2 p.m. you can change and you can ask questions. I don't know who has put the 4 people in this panel. If you pay attention, you have 2 startups, one from the north, Morocco, one from the south. And you have 2 investors, one from the east and one from the west. I don't know who has put it, but it's just like a miracle. In physics, when they want to jump from point E to point B, they have made a lot of mathematics and a lot of physics. If you take a point A like this one and point B like this one, you don't take any effort to make it. This is exactly what you need to know in terms of the startup. It's very easy. Go on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashid. Great session. Thank you for your interaction. It's good to see. So we'll play from going and exploring investment opportunities to how can we get the right investment, what can we learn from investors. In the meantime, I would like to put the investment in the right context. We have Naufal, who mentioned that at Quanergy we raised $260 million, and the last round. The last round was made at a $2 billion valuation. It sounds like a lot, and in no means it's a success. And by no means it is a success. We don't celebrate financing. You know, financing is a milestone to accomplish what you need to accomplish. But I just want to share with you a little bit about what we do and why the valuation. The valuation is basically justified by the impact. So what is LiDAR technology? LiDAR technology is a laser-based technology that allows you to give eyes to machines. It gives eyes to cars, it gives eyes to robots, it gives eyes to anything that you would like to see. It's not images, it's 3D detection. It sees every single object as a bunch of data points, and when I scan my environment, I am able to know every single dimension of that object. If it's a building, I know how high it is, I know what the dimensions of the windows. If they are cars, if they are bridges, I know their width, their depth in real time. So I'm collecting 500,000 data points per second, and I know in 3D everything around me. If I have a car next to me, I know how fast it is moving. I know that I shouldn't get too close to it. I know when it's stopping. So that's what LiDAR is, and the impact is massive when it goes to automotive to the automotive market. When 1 billion cars will use it, or when you need to be autonomous. And the impact is also great in Africa, where you need to map the whole environment, when the cities need to know when they need to cut the trees, or when they need to know when a building is actually violating the construction code, which is very common here. So it's no secret, right? So when I have a car that can detect this, or a truck, it's very powerful. It's also powerful in security, in perimeter security, in border security, because it has the ability to see in all lighting conditions. You don't need lights to see. Video cameras need to see, but LiDAR can see in pitch black, can see in very ambient light with a very strong sun, and I can see in 3D. So this is very powerful. So it's enabling autonomy, and the impact is huge. So if you're raising money, you need to justify the money that you're asking for based on the impact on the market. And with this, I think we could not find a better panel here than the panel that we're honored to have today. Where's our panel members? I would like to invite first the panel to join me here and on the stage, and I'll be happy to do the intros. It's a panel with an amazing pedigree, maybe a concentrated, pick whatever works for you. Perfect. Amazing pedigree, and you'll find out how. So let me start with Mrs. Hind Buhia, who's today the head of Global Nexus Fund, a clean tech private equity fund. Hind actually is a Harvard PhD, and if you don't know Hind, she was actually the CEO of the Casablanca Stock Exchange and one of the top 50 or top 35 most influential women in Africa or in the world. Was it? Because you were just behind Hillary Clinton. So just for that, I would like for you to give him. And we also have our guest from Silicon Valley, Ghazi Ben Uthman, who he's a friend, a Tunisian friend, visiting for the first time Morocco. Ghazi has been in the VC, venture capital business for over 20 years, as an analyst and now as an investor. He was managing director of Malas Capital Fund, a $120 million fund that invests in small businesses in Saudi Arabia. And today, he's back to his roots, investing in real innovation with UTIC Ventures, a $65 million fund that is focused not on the African market, but on the African brains. So if you have a revolutionary idea, he's looking for the geeks, the weird, the foolish, the next Steve Jobs of Africa, hopefully. Please help me welcome Ghazi. And our dear friend Khalil Azzouzi, one of the veterans of the venture capital business here in Morocco, one of the early ones to invest in companies, in e-commerce companies and other startups through what's the name of that Sherpa Capital and Dayam Fund. And today he is running a consulting practice to help investors and entrepreneurs make deals. Sorry? Yes, and sorry, and the fund is Azure Partners, not Azure. And also from Morocco, Mr. Omar Hiyani from Maroc Numeric Fund, my dear friends, because they invested in us in Al-Butula. So I have to give them the softer questions in this panel session. So thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. So the goal of this session is really lessons from your experience, and the lessons should apply to both should benefit both entrepreneurs and investors in the region. So I would like to start with Khalil because he's the one that I know has gone through a lot of lessons. So we wanna capture as many lessons as possible today. So Khalil, if we can start with one, what is that lesson that you learned the most from Dayam and your Sherpa days?
Thank you. Yeah, you know, to summarize lessons in a few minutes is quite complicated. It's a kind of tough task to talk about all what I went through during 10 years of investment in project startups and so on. But I think that two different aspects I would like to share with the audience is the first one is related to how to raise your funds, with whom we're gonna work as a manager, fund manager, and what kind of projects you'll be dealing with, and the size of the fund. As far as this aspect is concerned, I will say that choosing the way you're gonna manage your fund is very important, because if you have to be always referring to your investors to make a decision, or kind of dealing with of certain aspects that you came through when you're making your investment is quite tricky. So discretionary aspect means that you have power to decide with your partners is very important.
The second thing that I would like to mention is the processes that you put in place have to be clear enough and conveyed in a transparent way to project holders, so everything could be clear from the start. If I were to talk about the size of the fund, it's very important because I witnessed it when I was when I first raised my fund. It was like $5 million, which was a tiny fund because I experienced difficulties when it came to make follow-on investments, and that was very hard to find investors to come and put or to invest in a Series A or Series B because projects were promising, but the problem is that they were not really interesting for growth funds or other funds to come in with my fund, and I was really compromising because many projects were witnessing difficulties or to raise new funds, and we weren't through we were obliged to stop or to sell with a lower price.
Okay, so you can say that as an investor here in the region, you want to make sure that you could do both seed and Series A to ensure that growth.
Absolutely, okay. You have to be sure. When raising funds, you have to be sure that the size of the fund could deal with different stages of or life cycle of the project.
Okay, I'll get back to that in a little bit. So, Hind, if possible, could you please tell us more about the investment philosophy of the Clean Tech Fund and the stage of investment? If you can disclose the size, that will also be helpful, so we can have the right relevant discussion.
Sure. So Global Nexus is a managing company, and we are licensed to be able to manage several funds. And currently we work in, and which is referring to what you do today. We have a specifically focused fund for startups that are focusing on sectors around green sectors, and we're looking at ideas that are new, innovative, but also have a positive impact on the environment and on the society. So we are really very much into sustainable development, into having a good impact for the locally and also throughout Africa. So this first fund is a PPP. So we have public investors, we have also private investors. We have the CCG with us, which is the Moroccan Guarantee Fund. And also we have another arm of the Ministry of Energy, because we have a big part on renewable energy efficiency, but also anything related to intelligence in terms of management. I think responding to your question about what is it that we can say to startups and advise, and what we learned throughout this past 2 years that we've been working on selecting potential investments. We encourage new ideas. We invest in people, really. When you talk about startups, you talk about the entrepreneur who's coming with the idea. And so I think what I wanted to say is it is important to portray that image that you believe in your product, and you should really believe in it and work hard to make it work and to make it bigger, and to think big and have large ideas and reach out throughout Africa. I think the advantage of being in Morocco is that we are part of the Casa Finance City, which set up this platform where you can work in Morocco and also reach out to all the countries of Africa. The size, right now we have a fund where 20% goes to small startups, small ideas, small entrepreneurs, but also we have 80% of it that goes to capital risk, so a little larger. We do give tickets going from 1 million dirhams to 20 million dirhams, but what it seems like, so there are some small projects, usually we don't want to give more than what they really require, because we want to make sure that they become successful. And that's why I think what I wanted to say in terms of advice is, when you come with an idea, you should be ready to not only work hard in making this happen, but also in becoming more transparent, in becoming more financially viable, in being able to be monitored by someone else. Because when the fund comes in, then we have requirements in terms of evaluations, in terms of reporting, in terms of setting up objectives and actually meeting them. Well, so I don't want to talk more. We come back.
Thank you. Well, I'll stick with you in 30 seconds. What are the 3 criteria? By the way, your field is very present here. I saw several sustainable economy technologies, clean tech, entrepreneurs with really great concepts, and I'm sure they would want to talk to you. What are your criteria?
Yeah, this is great, and we love that. We are very open to ideas. Today we have a fund focusing on Morocco, but a lot of companies we're looking at, they go into Africa, but next year we're launching a fund focusing in Africa. So even ideas coming from Africa are more welcome. We're looking for something real, new, not just I want to fly or I want to set up something that flies, something that looks, but even if it's a traditional sector just like agriculture, and you come with an idea to be able to digitalize the irrigation system, for instance, or I'm giving you ideas of some of the structures that we are financing, actually. So we're looking for something that would contribute to local development, would contribute in terms of creating jobs, and also would contribute to the strategic objective of Morocco of sustainable development, facing all the problems that with climate change. So throughout our selections, we go into people that are more sensitive about the sustainability and the positive impact. So yeah. We're open to ideas. So please, if you have something mature enough, meaning it's not just an idea that needs to have a prototype, but something that have a little proof of its concept, please welcome.
Perfect. Thank you. Ghazi, you haven't started investing in Africa yet or the MENA region, but clearly you have 2 different experiences that could be very relevant to your new endeavor. So you. Silicon Valley, your first decade there, and the experience in Saudi Arabia, there is some level of similarities in terms of society, law or lack thereof, and also the mentality of the entrepreneur. Is there any lessons that you think you have learned that could be relevant to the new UTIC Ventures adventure?
Sure. So the experience in Saudi Arabia was very specific to SMEs, not much about innovation, much more about new ways of supporting the SMEs that the banks didn't quite provide. So there, the lessons was really for us as investors to structure a product that addressed the market need of SMEs that the banks didn't do. So it doesn't quite apply to the audience here, but again, it's investment and entrepreneurs need to be matched together so that the right result happens. If you have the wrong type of investment with the right type of entrepreneurs, it's not going to work, and vice versa. In terms of coming from Silicon Valley and trying to see what can be done in the region here to help accelerate innovation and so on, there are a couple of things that we look at specifically. And what I like to tell entrepreneurs from the Maghreb, where we focus, so Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, is that there is no such thing anymore, at least in advanced technologies, there's no such thing as a local startup. What I mean by that is, if you tell me that you have no competitors or very few competitors, or that competitors in China are not your competitors because you're focused on something else, then you don't know what you're talking about. Because in a microsecond, a startup in China can access the market in Morocco or in Nigeria or in South Africa. So if you're not thinking about an idea that is big enough meaning that it's addressing a pain point that is not just local, not just regional, but as global as possible, then you're going to be playing in an area that is going to shrink over time. And what I mean by that is, if the market that you're addressing today, let's say in Morocco or in Africa, is interesting, then competitors from the US and from China will find a way to come and compete with you. And since they're much bigger there, they will beat you at your own game. So it's not enough to think defensively. You have to think that for every idea that you have in this room, there are 10,000 Chinese entrepreneurs that have that same idea and that are going to work 20 hours a day to make that happen. So if your idea is not big enough, and if you're not willing to work 20 hours a day, and when I say 20 hours a day, I'm not joking. It's not 20 hours meaning it ends at 5 and watching TV counts as working hours. No, it's 20 hours and potentially a little bit more than that. So if you want to play in that game, if you want to play in the World Cup, you come and play in the World Cup. Otherwise, you stay at home. It's better than getting a.
You play the African Cup.
Huh?
You can play the African Cup.
you can, yes. But for us, at least, that's not very interesting.
Thank you. Omar, I think your fund is one of the blessings in Morocco today, because it gives hope that you can really get funded locally. But quite frankly, I've seen the team. I had the pleasure to work with and so previous people who worked on that fund with all the best intentions, but I didn't see the venture capital experience in the past, and I want to know to what extent you feel that somebody who wasn't an entrepreneur is an impediment to making great decisions in investing in Moroccan startups or in startups in general. So if I look at Silicon Valley, most of VCs were started companies before and at least tried and understand product before they go to investing. And this is not the case in Morocco or in the MENA region at large. There are smart people, but not from the field. Is that a problem, or it's different here?
Thank you, Akram, for this tough question. So, as you may know, MNF has been running since 2010. For a long time, we've been the only VC fund in Morocco. We financed 17 startups for our first fund that is completely invested right now, and we are now launching a new fund that is operating right now, and we're starting our investment operations in a few coming weeks. I know we are not the most appreciated VC fund in Morocco, because we were the only ones for at least 6 or 7 years. We received more than 550 applications for financing, and we only financed 17 startups, which is a quite low ratio, but which is also a common ratio for VC funds. A VC fund, you keep receiving application, and you have to be picking up the right startups at the right time too. We are behind the success of many startups, Botola, for example. Many others are quite known in Morocco. Livremoi.ma, Marketplace, formerly Épicerie.ma, Manageo, Peacock Financials, VBS, Rim Games, which develops video games for PC and PlayStation. About your question on not having entrepreneurs in the team or in our investment committee, maybe we're not entrepreneurs by ourselves, but we are kind of involved, very involved, I would say, even in operations in all the startups we invested in. So in somehow we are also entrepreneurs, suffering like them, chasing for clients for them, solving internal problems, designing products with them. I spent, for example, more than a year co-designing a product with one of startups for our internal needs. And also for our investment committee, of course, we are a public-private fund. We are partially funded by the CCG as the other funds. And we also have
Is there a startup that manages mics? You have one? Yeah. Cool.
We also have 3 banks among our shareholders, and these shareholders sit on our investment committee, but they are not classical bankers, I would say. They all come from private equity world. They've seen a lot of traditional SME startups during their career. Most of them have up to 20 or 25 years of experience, and we know what works in Morocco and outside of Morocco, and we know what doesn't. And one of our key lessons from what we've seen during all these years to startups: don't be stubborn. Get advices from all the people around you, from all associations or programs you're running in, from your investors. You have to change some strategies or your strategy whenever it's required by the market or by the competition, etc. And really have to make the right decisions at the right time.
Thank you. Although I don't know if I would agree. I think I have a similar experience as you. Spent 10 years in the financial industry, and not in Morocco, right there in Silicon Valley, and participated in some great IPOs like Salesforce, and I got to see this from outside, and I thought, that's it, I know it all, I'm ready. I'm really ready to go to the next level. I thought I have to go start my first startup. And funny enough, I didn't know what I didn't know. It was very humbling to figure out that I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I never built a product. It took me 3 years to learn how to build a product. So really the experience of entrepreneurs are irrelevant. I'll tell you something else. Working for Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and UBS is actually, I think, in Silicon Valley, one reason why no VC will take me as a VC partner, because they know we don't know the heck that we're talking about. So it's very different here, and we hope to change it so we can improve the success ratio in investing in startups. I guess today, the Omar that I know 4 years ago is not the Omar that I know today, because yes, now you are the entrepreneur and you develop that expertise, and expertise comes with failure, and there is nothing wrong about it. We all fail, and we continue to fail. And Khalil has also a very nice track record of failures that I would like to address. You're better off than a lot of people around here. So I want to address one very specifically, because, okay, entrepreneurs in this region avoid super innovative technologies because it's a blue ocean. They do not know how to size the market. They don't understand the technology. If I came with an AI or LiDAR technology, you probably not take it. Maybe Ghazi will take it. So you avoid all that and you go to things that are copycat. You know, you go to, oh, this worked in the US, it worked here, it's gonna work here. And yet, you fail. You invested in super deals. Very simple investment. It's copycat of Groupon. And tell me, in your opinion as an investor, what is the lesson to learn? Why super deals fail when Hamizat can succeed? What's the difference?
Oh, the difference is I will put the human aspects as a first as first criteria of failures. And what happened to my fund, I were to talk about my own experience, is that I made the good choice as far as the market side, market attractiveness, business model, and so on. But the human aspect could not figure out what could happen after putting money into the project. And that was very tricky. You know, the relationship with money is quite tricky if you were to deal with, founders, young founders especially, and don't have enough experience in life, you know. And what happened, saw a change in behavior of many founders that were before, you know, very, you know, quite confident working with these guys. And you know, things what could happen is that I would like just to focus on the cultural aspect, which is very, very different from the one you're living in the USA or in other countries. Social aspects are way too much on the Moroccan. If I were to talk about our own culture, on our behavior, what means that we are too linked to the family. We are emotionally linked. We are bound emotionally to different guys around you, and what we forget to do is that to refer to professionals who could be, you know, who could give the right advice independently and without any attachment to the.
So what's the lesson to learn here? How do you, when a deal comes to you, how do you evaluate that social aspect? How do you de-risk it?
Yeah.
Do you focus on investing singles?
I take a lot of time assessing the soft skills and the human aspect of the founders, which is very important. And I think that I weigh it 80% in my equation when I have to make a decision. And then after, if I feel really confident, and I could tell you that in my new organization I have a psychology psycholog who is working right with us because it's very important. Yeah, it's very important because we have to be really careful when about these tricky aspects of the human aspects. So there are many. I think the main reason I have failed in my investment before. Some of my investment was the human aspect.
Absolutely. Okay. Hey, the same thing. I want to kind of use the human aspect as a segue. You clearly said I invest in people, and this is key. Team. Like Giacomo said here, invest in Africa. He said, no, I invest in team. Teams can pivot. They can have the wrong idea, and then with the persistence, determination they have, they will be able to pivot. So, you haven't failed yet in the startup environment. You will, but you haven't done it yet. If you have, I would like to know. We'd like to know what you learned from it. It's not public, at least.
It's funny. It's a strong word, right, to say fail. We don't want to use it, huh? But we get to where we are because we have done so many things and because we've changed paths. And we change path because we go to what we are getting to. And we change path not because we failed. We can see it as we failed in something, but because there's something else better that you need to pursue. And I'm in a more positive way of looking at things. What I believe is that any idea, any product, any concept, you can make it work as you can make it fail, right? And this is why we are here today, is because today Morocco believes in the new ideas that all these youth have, and that they need to assist them, help them, even contribute with them to create their company, to create the value, and to create jobs. So this is how I see it. So to me, if something fails, it's because whoever comes with the idea does not work hard, does not spend 20 hours a day doing it, does not change path when it's time to do it. So for example, You come with this super new concept that works in the US, but when you adapt it to Morocco, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because not only you don't have the environment, you don't have the mentality, you don't have the social skills to accept a new product. And that's why you need to be able to adapt whatever you produce. So if you say you're interested, we have an interesting startup that we invested in. He does those new bikes. It's a super light bike that can carry up to 100 kilograms. So it has it's patterned, it has a brevet, everything is all nice. But it's not enough because you have a lot of competition. So you need to be able to create something new, to be able to persevere, to be able to have contracts, to be able to grow. And that's how I see things. So when we invest, we create companies, we make them grow. If that product is not good, we change their direction. And to be able to change the direction takes people, team, experience, and the willingness to learn to have whoever carries a product.
Right.
And I know, and what I wanted to say is that I think all of us, it applies to all of us. We all fail in some way because we believe that we need to be, I don't know, each one of us wanted to become something, and maybe it's not what he is. Maybe, today I think the best career we see is probably not what we do. It is probably to be a star. And each one believes in something, and we change, not because we failed in doing that, no, because we've learned the skills that make us go to another path and that another direction. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
It's just, it's not a life failure, it's an operational failure. You tried something, it
Operation
didn't work.
failure, you change. This doesn't work, you change the product.
Absolutely.
If you believe in creating a
As long as you have
company-
enough money to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But if you believe in creating the company, that's where our work, we don't give a lot of money. We give the money that is necessary, and we stop. And if we see that it goes further, then you can give more. And if it doesn't, there are many other ways of getting money. Then you can go to the bank, then you can go to get subsidies, then you can go to many skills. Thank you.
So, Ghazi, I think you're the one who here accepts failure easily. We don't have to even discuss it, and we understand each other. In your strategy, how many times do you have to be right to make the highest return for your LPs, for limited partners? So you make, on how many investments that do you plan to make a year? In a best case scenario?
Okay, so since we want to focus on what we call deep technology, so innovations, research, things that can be patented, etc., we know that there's going to be potentially very high failure rates along the way. So we're intending to do only 10 to maybe 14 deals over 5 years, so you divide that, so maximum 2 to 3 deals a year, but we want to be very implicated, meaning we want to work very closely with the entrepreneurs and put enough money behind them, at least from our fund, but we want to work with others. So from our fund, we're willing to put up to $6 million over the life of the investment, which is very small compared to Silicon Valley standards, but it's a good.
And that would be seed or Series A?
All the way. We don't care. If you have an idea today and it's on a piece of paper and it's good, we'll invest small amount and go up with you. If you have a great idea and it's working, we'll put $6 million in one ticket and go to the next level with you. So we have full flexibility on that. In terms of failure itself, there's two things we try to do, as I mentioned, because we work on relatively crazy stuff. So one is to support the entrepreneurs and their team. So we do two things. My partner is a very operational person, so he manages teams of thousands of engineers at eBay, and he did his own startups in Silicon Valley and so on. And we also have a fantastic network of Arab American technology executives in Silicon Valley that wants to help. So we have advisors that we can bring to the table. So we support as much as the entrepreneur is willing to support. And then when they're not willing to take that support, we fire entrepreneurs. I don't care if it's your idea or not. I'm not investing my own money, I'm investing money of investors. So if I have to fire you because you're not doing the job, we will do that in a minute. We'll replace you. If you are good as CTO but not good as CEO, you won't stay as CEO. We'll take 1 to 99%. We don't care.
Oh, really? You do that?
We'll do anything. So as investors...
You're a real MENA investor then.
As investors, if usually one deal out of the 14 or 15 will do very well. So for us, it's very important that we own a big chunk of that. It doesn't help us if the deal is very successful and we only own 10%. Because
so what you're saying is your capital structure will be different from your typical round in, for example, Silicon Valley. Because you're providing a lot of value. Very scarce capital, no capital goes there. And plus, your know-how, your market knowledge, and the access to expertise is super valuable.
And again, it's also mathematics. So if we have to put in a lot of capital on an idea that's not very well, very mature, and so on, we will want to take more ownership because of the risk. But if your idea is fantastic and we'll put $6 million to get 10% because we know you're going to be $1 billion company, we will do that also. So we want to give ourselves full flexibility to do the best deal for the entrepreneur and for us. But again, if you don't do your part, I have no problem firing you.
Okay, great, thank you. Omar, from your experience, what are you planning to do differently in the next fund compared to the previous funds based on the lessons you learned? I just want to give a quick shout out about MNF because, quite frankly, I feel like if MNF was not there in Morocco, I don't think Al Butala would have been able to be where it is today. Nothing is perfect in life. But obviously, they're they're a team with high integrity, with strong work ethics. They will support you with whatever they know and with whatever they can. So if you have any ideas, and I met a guy here who has a good accounting software. Please feel free to talk to Omar because they have the money and the willingness to pay. So this is a quick marketing pitch about
Thank you.
But please tell me, what would you do differently today?
Yeah, of course we had our failures too. For in our first fund, and most of them was also for human factors. We had some failures because of competition. We are competing in a global economy. And one of our startups we invested in was, I would say, defeated by a competitor coming from with huge money, and we couldn't follow on the market. But most of the failures we had was because of human factors. One of our founders went to jail, but nothing to do with us. 2 or 3 others, there were conflicts into the team. Another was that the founder wasn't dedicated to the startup, and for our second fund we'll be very severe on that. If you're not dedicated 100% or even 200% for your startup, you will not invest in your startup. We still have no psychologists in our investment team. But we spend a lot of time on due diligence of the entrepreneur, maybe more time due diligence on the entrepreneur than due diligence on the startup itself. Yeah.
So it looks
dedicated.
like there is a new startup idea. So like a company to help investors evaluate teams.
Yeah. Of course, there are people doing that actually. Another thing is we have many startups. Once they don't even launch their product, they only have an idea, they come to see a VC fund. I think it's too early for a startup to look for a VC fund when they are in an ideation stage. At least it's our strategy, maybe it's different from some other funds. Because in Morocco we spend a lot of time advocating for other financial tools. They were launched by CCG a few months ago. InnovIdea, InnovInvest. Before going to a VC fund, go and apply for these tools. InnovIdea is for ideas, and InnovStart is for startups that are still developing their products. And why do we insist on that? Because we need to know if the entrepreneur is able to correctly manage money before raising more money from VC funds. And we can make some few exceptions, but we mostly invest in startups that have already raised money from these programs.
Okay, thank you. Khalil, your new fund, as your partners, has $36 million to invest. I don't know on what period of time you're planning to invest that $36 million. Maybe quickly tell us about the geographic exposure. What's your geographic focus? Is it just Morocco or also Africa or MENA? And from the DIAM experience, from the other experiences, what is going to change in your new investment philosophy?
Okay, Azure innovation is it is part of Fond Innovation that was launched with both World Bank and the Moroccan government, and we were chosen amongst the other fund managers to manage partly this fund. We raised so far $36 million. We have as investors, we have the African Bank of Development, the Dutch government, and the KfW German Bank, and the local banks, CIH and BMCE, plus Caisse Centrale Garantie. We actually present a new business model as far as the new fund, benefiting from our own experience. So we first required that the fund will be managed on a discretionary basis. We are three partners, and the three partners, two amongst the three partners are entrepreneurs, myself and the other partner, Adnan Fidali, and Tariq Haddi, who was already managing another fund, which is Nibitu Fund, completely invested in agribusiness. This fund will be dedicated to innovative projects in the broad sense. We provide for three stages as was required by the Moroccan government: the seed, the early stage, and the VC stage, the later stage. 20% will be dedicated to seed stage. The early stage will be like 40% of the fund size, and for the other 40% will be dedicated to the later stage. One thing I mentioned earlier, I would like to focus on is that we provide a big part of the fund to the follow-on investment. That was very important to deal with because we knew that given our own experience that we had to deal with fund shortage when I was a little fund, and we were obliged to abandon some startups, though they were very promising. The second thing is that we set a kind of centralized administration and operational management to manage the startups. Yeah. The aspects means that the startup will be dedicated to the core businesses, and all the administration and the other aspect will be managed in a kind of holding.
It's almost like the rocket internet business.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we're out of time. We can open it to Q&A. If you have a mic somewhere, we can. So really, while we're waiting for a question, it's the landscape is really different from the typical venture capital. When you mention banks, of course, every single fund here, or at least three of them, are backed by banks, which is really not the good news, especially if they're part of the investment process. Yeah. They're just, which is great. They're supporting the environment. Go ahead. Just
Hello. I want to ask one question. What do you call a ready-to-invest startup? So, is it do we need to have paying customers, or at least, or how many paying customers, or how many users, and what do you call a ready-to-invest startup or idea? Is it just a prototype or something? So, what's the
I'll take this because it's kind of well. It all depends on your on the industry where you are, the level of technology intensity, right? If you're working in clean tech, Hind would like to get a POC. It all depends. In some industries, you really need traction. So maybe I'll let Hind answer that
Okay,
question.
let me give you an example of, we already invested in 3 startups that are small. So we started with a ticket of 500,000 dirhams, and if he's going well, we can go more. And these people, they have already a new existing contracts, because we see, okay, there is potential. But we know that if we're there and can help them, we can even grow the numbers of contracts he can get. So that's why I said, before, when you have just an idea, you should go to those, there are Innov Starting, Innovena. But for us, you should come with a nice idea and 1 or 2 people that believe in you, because then it proves that, there is an interest. So, well, and then we can help grow. And exactly what he said, we don't give money and we let the startup come back after 3 months, tell us what they did, 6 months. No, we're here. We bring in something new, we bring them added value, and we grow their portfolio of clients and customers.
You want to answer that? Go ahead.
Yeah, it really depends on the sector you're working on. If you are on B2B with big contracts, maybe one big contract is enough to prove that the market is here, your product is ready, etc. When you're addressing B2C customers, you need to see, we need to see tens or hundreds of customers for your startup before we can invest in. We can make some few exceptions. For example, we invested in Rim Games, which is a video gaming studio. To develop a video game for PC or PlayStation, you need at least 2 or 3 years. Of course, we cannot invest after 2 or 3 years, because at that time they will not even need money. So we invested when we saw 10 or 15% of the game. We could see the talent. We could see that the market is here. They almost generated no revenue in Morocco. All the revenue is generated abroad. So it really depends on the sector and the idea you're working on.
And remember, venture capital investing is not a science, it's an art. And you develop the skill. It boils down to one thing, is the consistency of your story, how sound it is. And you're going to have a good story if you have done your homework. So you can come with with what you call an idea on a napkin, right? And you can go to Ghazi and you can have a solid conversation with him, and he'll know what you're talking about, and he will probably invest in you. But you will go to MNF and it's not a fit for them. They will say, go get some customers and come back to us. So do your homework, prepare your story, and then go talk to potential investors.
Good afternoon. I have a question, please. My name is Hassan, and I'm now launching a web-based platform to link individuals, companies with artisans, means snaiya, so in the Arabic word. My question is to Mr. Ghazi. You were talking about Chinese, many Chinese having the same ideas as ours. In your opinion, what is the strategy to go in the launch? Shall we partner with big companies in the start? Shall we start smaller than bigger and partner with big companies? What is really the strategy to go and to take into consideration this kind of launch.
So again, not to address...
Before you answer, I will take the last one.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hamid. Thank you, Mr. Akram. Thank you, Hind Ghazi Omar, Mr. Khalil, for the quality of your interventions. So my question is for Mr. Khalil. You talked about hiring PSI in your company. What's the advantages of this kind of hiring? Thank you.
Okay, so I'll briefly address the issue of how do you address a market like China. I think the first thing is when you're designing your solution, so from the very beginning, you have to be thinking about those markets and not necessarily how you're going to address them, but what you're going to design for them, to make sure that you're not designing something for one market and then saying, oh, why don't we think about China? It's too late, or India or Indonesia or something like that. So first you need to design a product that anybody can use, whether it's Chinese or Indonesian or Brazilian. And after that, there's 1,000 different ways of accessing those markets, whether it's through partnerships or if you're online, you just turn it on and you address those markets, or if it's through connections that your investors or your existing clients can find. But if from the beginning you're not developing for the world, it becomes difficult to try to adapt it to a particular, because what you don't want is say, I'm going to develop a product that only the Chinese can use, and if they don't take it up, then it doesn't apply to the Brazilians. You want something that works.
I think what he was talking about is he's building a marketplace where artisans can really compete with them eventually. So his question is, should I just go partner up from the get-go? It's very similar to the story of Shukri, where he said he brought in a Chinese expert to work with him so he can go after he can deal with the Chinese market. So his question was like, can I just partner up with the Chinese and maybe use my design expertise and produce with them? Or should I maybe do stealth mode, produce for the Moroccan market, then get a lot of money and expand?
Again, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Why? Because as I mentioned, if you're going to get a Chinese expert with you on the team from the beginning, then you need a Brazilian expert, Indonesian expert, etc. Because you don't want to go and spend 2 years trying to crack or compete with the Chinese market only to have somebody in Brazil come and beat you. So get educated across as many possible competitors as you can. There's no one solution. You have to figure it out, not me.
Okay, and the answer to Khalid. Let's do it. The advantages of having a shrink in
The advantages of having a psychologic with us is as you may know, everybody has his own experience and has his own cliche, but one size doesn't fit all. We could have experienced different things, but they could be very different from one to another one. This is why we bring in a psychologist that to make sure that our feeling is correct and we are making the right decision. Let me take an example. Sometimes we do have to deal with 2 or 3 founders. Between brackets, that all the experience I had with more than 2 founders were really a real flop. Because we were into conflicts. We were not with us, but between long-time friends and guys from the same family and so on. This one of the things that I would like to share with you is that avoid partnering with friends or family. That's a very bad thing, given my own experience, and I think that is shared with different VC managers over the world. The second thing is that the psychologists that bring a kind of guarantee to investors that not to pass on a real opportunity. Sometimes we could be wrong in making decisions.
It's more assurances than guarantees.
We are not experts on human aspects. Okay. Sometimes we just refer to our own, experiences and a cliche, and we'd love to have an independent point of view from someone who is a real expert, and just to help us make the right decision.
Thank you. I will have to stop here. It's very hard when you are standing between you and lunch. So we're going to have to just stop it here and thank the panelists. Thank you so much for valuable contribution. And we'll see you after lunch.